Hello there and welcome to the slow amber glow of a campfire licking limestone while sparks drift upward like tiny travelers and settle into the night. You pull your knees in on a folded hide tasting wood smoke at the back of your tongue as shadows breathe along the cave mouth. Across from you, the storyteller warms their hands above the coals like two pale moons and gives you the kind of smile that says, yes, you made it to the circle. Out beyond the thorn branches, eyes are watching, and if you wander off alone, you probably won't survive this, but in here the dark behaves. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing this little firelight stretch across the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The last blush of pink slides off the clouds as you arrive at a late Paleolithic camp. Someone nudges a coal with a charred stick and the ring of faces brightens. You can smell marrow fat and crushed garlic leaves, hear the hush of river reeds, and feel the day's heat exhaling up through the soil into your ankles. The storyteller lifts one hand, fingers spread like an antler, and the circle leans in. Your heartbeat starts to mirror the fire's tempo, slow, then slower. First comes the welcome. You're offered a seat that remembers the reindeer it used to be. A child yawns and pretends they didn't, and an elder smirks the universal language of bedtime. The storyteller passes you a tiny ember on a flake of stone, not to burn you, but to warm your ears, playful code for pay attention. You try to hold it like a sophisticated guest and immediately fumble, which earns you a cheer so soft it barely stirs the smoke. Joke 1 lands. You're part of the story before the story even begins. This warmth is more than physical. It's maintenance for the village inside the village. Mainstream historical fact by the late Stone Age people ringed hearths with stones and kept traveling coals alive so fire could be safely carried from camp to camp. Your fingertips come away charcoal smudged. It feels like signing a guest book no one will ever lose. A gentle throat clearing 2 notes sets the frame. Near the fire, a few bones stand upright, fluted by heat and time. Are they instruments? Historians still argue whether a pierced cave bear femur from a Slovenian cave is a deliberately made flute or a hyena's accidental handiwork. Either way, rhythm begins before words. Finger taps on skin resin pops in the flames, your breath smoothing itself into a nighttime cadence. The storyteller fishes props from a pouch, a feather, a polished pebble, a rib sliver, etched with patient zigzags you ache to trace. The feather, they whisper, is wind that decided to sit. They blow it toward you. It parachutes into your face with perfect dignity, and the circle grins. Joke 2, ancient slapstick light as down. Another beat of truth slides into the braid. Ochre, iron-rich red earth, streaks a few chins not only for beauty, but because mixed with fat, it discourages biting insects and eases sunburn. You draw one line along your forearm, and in a single streak become both audience and cast. Quirky tidbit, a walnut of birch tar already chewed, makes the rounds. It's smoky, slightly sweet, prehistoric chewing gum, and when warmed, it doubles as glue in case your sandal misbehaves or a feather needs to become a story's wing. How does bedtime work without beds or clocks, you wonder? Like this younger ones, sprawled on furs like stray mittens. Adults perched with half-finished toolkits and minds willing to idle. The storyteller turning a pebble in their palm until the group goes quiet enough for the pebble to be audible. A sip of water is tipped onto the ground, just a drop, and everyone repeats a soft syllable, more breath than speech. It marks a crossing from tasks to tale. You can feel your shoulders accept the border. The storyteller glances up. A pale dust river arcs across the sky, and 3 bright sparks hang in a row like embers that forgot to fall. We carry roads in the sky, their eyes seem to say, but tonight we stay. The firekeeper, often a nimble teen, proud of coaxing wood into a steady orange loaf, puffs the coals through a hollow reed, part conductor, part weather tamer. Camps aren't random. Shelters face away from the wind hearths, sit where smoke can find a door, and sleeping places ring the heat like petals. You don't need a blueprint when the body remembers the plan. Humor keeps the wolves in your head on a leash. Tonight's hero, the storyteller confides, is very brave and extremely allergic to chores. 20,000 years later, it still lands. Laughter loosens the last knots in the group's shoulders, a safe signal that both the literal lions and the social ones are not due this minute. Even comfort is instruction. Bedtime wraps training in velvet. If the wind lifts like that, move camp. If a certain bird calls at midnight, expect weather. If laughter arrives, make room. Soon the props will turn into metaphors. Feather as road pebble, as promise rib bone, as river bend. But for now, they are talismans teaching your body to unclench. Historians still argue whether talismans bind groups by belief or by the sheer power of synchronized behavior, yet the effect is visible. Breathing slows attention, narrows the small noises of night, knit into a blanket. The storyteller smudges herbs into the coals. Smoke sweetens. Crickets recalibrate. A bat sketches a curve overhead, as if signing the air. You feel less like a person and more like warmed clay, soft enough to be shaped by a sentence. Their voice lowers into sandy velvet. You are here, they murmur, meaning both the camp and your skull. You are safe, they add, and for once, the night doesn't argue. Before the tale's engine turns over, you admire the engineer. This person knows the temperature of suspense, the softness of comfort, the elbow room of humor. They've seen nights go wrong, storms slapping hides, embers, hopping to dry bark corals, simmering like blisters, and they know how to steer. You sense the unspoken job description. Part an actor, part memory bank, part fire marshal. Joke 3 arrives as the fire cracks. If it pops 3 times in a row, that's the spirits agreeing with me or the wood's just damp. Either way, I'm taking the compliment. Now the first sentence gathers like a coal-finding breath. The circle tilts toward it. You tilt with them. Hands hover above the flame and rise, bringing the heat along, so the story seems to glow as it arrives. You are ready to float, to learn without noticing, to drift with a smile and wake with something useful where a yawn used to be. If a track bends, you'll remember what it means. If a wind shifts, you'll know when to sleep on the leeward side. If a laugh catches, you'll make space. And this is the point of the welcome, to calibrate you to ember speed, to remind you that night isn't emptiness, but a method, and that stories are the safest roads you can walk without moving. The storyteller sees your shoulders drop, your eyes soften, your breath slip into rhythm, and they smile the smile of someone who has walked this road 1,000 times without footprints. The next breath will be a beginning, and you are already inside it. You slide your palms toward the coals, letting the warmth slick your knuckles, and the ring reforms like a tide drawing footprints back into shape. The seat you take isn't random. It's a sentence the camp can read. Elders lean slightly windward, so smoke brushes them first, an old kindness for older lungs, and children settle where sleepy heads can tip onto a parent's thigh with minimal drama. Tool menders claim the brightest edge of the glow, so flakes show their glittering intentions, while hunters favor the darker arc where their eyes can keep one more promise with the night. You settle where the fire's heart and the storyteller's hands are both in view, a place that says, I listen. I learn. I might also nod off politely. The rules of where to place your bones arrive without words. If you're nursing a grudge, you park yourself with the river at your back until it cools. If your ankle is tender, you inherit the hide with the least prickly memories. If you're new as you are tonight, you take the guest's spot not too close to the sparks, because sparks have opinions, and not so far that jokes have to jog to reach you. Mainstream historical fact in many Ice Age camps: the hearth is the architectural center. Archaeologists reading ash layers, compacted floor polish, and rings of dropped debris can map activity zones as clearly as if someone drew a plan on parchment. Your heel finds a shallow groove just where countless other heels have rested. It fits like a borrowed shoe that secretly wants to keep you. The storyteller makes a small orbit checking distances like a shepherd counting shadows. A pinch of ash is dabbed onto the brow of a young cousin who can't stop wriggling, and the child melts into a very responsible lump. A hush hand rises palm down slow, and the general volume settles to river at night. You catch yourself mirroring the gesture because calm is contagious, and also because you enjoy pretending you're in charge for once. An elder with frost-white hair tilts a coal onto a flake of stone and nudges it toward you. Not a test, not a dare, an initiation with training wheels. Warm your ears, they whisper same phrase as before. You cradle the tiny planet, feel it thrum against your skin, then set it back into orbit. They're chosen. You don't get a sash, you get responsibility disguised as a glow. Historians still argue whether formal leadership existed here or whether influence floated person to person with the moment. But in this circle, the past ember is a quiet appointment. You are tonight's sleepy apprentice. Joke 1 sneaks up with the smoke. The storyteller squints at your seat, then at the cave mouth. Good? They murmur if a hyena strolls in, you're the second course. I prefer to be dessert. The circle exhales the good kind of laughter, the kind that tells worry. It won't be catered this evening. You adjust your posture in the internationally recognized pose of very brave but also moving slightly left. Now you notice the seating symphony. The firekeeper crouches close enough to read the coals, but far enough to keep eyebrows so precious intact. The healer chooses the quiet side where murmurs can grow without bumping into elbows. A drummer without a drum rests a shallow bowl across their knees. Fingertips will be enough. Someone older and quieter than the moon takes the spot that catches wayward embers, the ring's lifeguard. These roles drift as nights require, but the pattern persists, repeated like a favorite refrain until even the dogs know where to nap. Quirky tidbit before anyone lies down. A flat stone is slid into the fire's belly, warmed until it glows on the inside, then wrapped in hide and tucked beneath the sleeping furs, an ice age hot water bottle you won't know you need until your toes sing gratitude. Another small rite rides the heels of travelers, 2 taps on the earth, just beyond the fire ring, a toll of dust paid to the ground for safe passage. Does it change the world? Not measurably. Does it tune everyone's attention to the same soft key? Absolutely. Call and response begins with silence. The elder clears their throat in a rhythm everyone recognizes. Not the danger thrum, not the storm rattle, but the story sequence. 2 taps on the bowl, a pebble's click, a breath drawn and held. You can almost see the cue lines traveling around the ring, permission rippling along faces like wind combing tall grass. The storyteller's first words will be the obvious start, but the circle has already begun, braided by attention. Your heel settles deeper into that ancestral groove, and you picture future diggers crouching. Where you crouch grinning at microscope bright ash and a crescent of bones reading this furniture of soot, the way librarians read spines. Mainstream historical fact, again softly placed repeated hearths, often occupy the same locations across seasons, flanked by debris halos that reveal where hide-scraping, napping, and food prep happened, meaning this isn't just a fire. It's a map you sit inside. Why me, you think, as the ember-warm appointment hums in your ear. The storyteller answers aloud, as if your skull has open windows. Because you brought new roads today, they say. Because you returned in one piece. Also, because you have the kind of face that reacts, and stories love, faces that bounce laughter like stones skip water. Joke 2. And because last time you fell asleep first, and we need a volunteer tribute to stay awake, you salute sleep with exaggerated hostility, accepted by the court. Across from you, the elder assigned to dispute damping chooses the circle's softest arc, where light fades to velvet. If a voice tightens, they slide a comment between sentences as soft as moss. If a jealous remark aims at the teller's shine, the elder lobs a compliment at the offender's feet, a tasty distraction that turns teeth back into smiles. Historians still argue whether feasting or storytelling stitched groups tighter, but you can feel the sutures pull snug with each laugh, each shared glance, each gently redirected grumble. A moth pinwheels through the glowlands, brief as thought on your knee cleans its tiny face, then lifts into the halo again. The storyteller watches it too, and folds the moment into the plan. Seating isn't only for people. The night itself is placed stars on their hooks, wind on its leash. Small creatures allowed front row seats, so long as they don't nibble the props. Joke 3 peeks out when a lizard trespasses near the stew. If he tells a better story than last winter, he can stay. The lizard blinks, declines the audition, and exits to light applause. Your apprentice duties clarify. Being Ember chosen means you will echo the final line under your breath, so it sticks hold a prop when the teller needs both hands. And if someone knocks a hollow bone with an elbow, retrieve it like a professional butler who was born in a bush. If your eyelids sag, you will practice the sacred art of napping with dignity. Chin tucked, mouth closed, soul at large, reputation intact. Quirky extra, a tiny smear of clay on the chin tip, is the camp's gentle signal for you snored once. The spirits are informed. All is forgiven. The fire's geometry shapes attention. Sit too far, and your mind wanders into thorn thickets. Sit too close, and you become smoked like a fish you are frankly not. The mid-distance is the story's sweet spot, where shadows sketch but don't shout, and every syllable arrives like a feather landing on your cheek. Shoulders touch, and you feel the group make its micro-adjustments closer, calmer, quieter, like one animal settling its many hearts into the same slow drum. Then the long pause opens like a cave mouth, and you understand the trick of the seats. The ring ensures the story faces everyone at once. No back row, no cheap seats. You're held in a perfect loop where the next word has equal distance to travel to every ear, which might be the most democratic invention ever made out of logs and patience. Historians still argue whether seating hierarchies were rigid or fluid, but tonight, they feel like water taking the shape of whoever pours themselves here. The storyteller unfolds a hide in their lap, a map of nothing but warmth, and smooths it flat. Now, they say, not hurried. The bowl answers with 2 gentle taps. The coals lift their orange lips. You lean in so slightly, it counts as devotion. You are where you need to be, in the place made for this voice, this heat, this night. The ember has chosen correctly, and your seat has learned your name. You learn the rules without anyone reciting them, the way your skin learns firelight by heat. A story night is shaped the way a river shapes its own bed patiently, with repeated gestures until even the stones remember. First rule hush has a sound, not the sharp shh of classrooms, but a soft exhale through the nose, like the coals themselves agreeing. The ring answers in kind breaths, laid gently on the air until you can hear the tick of sap inside a stick and the low, steady purr of sleep sliding closer. Second rule sparks are everybody's business. A flat pad of damp moss lies ready on a forked stick. The spark snuffer and a shallow bowl of water crouches just past the heat, like a cat waiting to help. The firekeeper has a fan made of plaited bark, not for drama, but for guiding oxygen, like a quiet hand on a skittish shoulder. Mainstream historical fact. Many Ice Age hearths have stone rings and ash shelves visible today as pale lenses in the soil. Evidence of careful tending and a habit of banking coals under ash to keep them alive till morning. You bank the edge lightly with the stick tip and watch the orange dim to a kind of sleeping. Third rule, your hands speak before your mouth. 2 gentle taps on a clay bowl mean the teller has the road. A palm held sideways at shoulder height asks for a pause. 2 fingers curled toward the chest offer a memory for later, no derailing, just a promise on layaway. If you absolutely must add a thread, you first pass a pebble to the storyteller. The pebble is a tiny contract, that says, "Your road first, then mine." Joke 1 when someone forgets and blurts, the elder solemnly hands them the moss snuffer and says, "Since you have so much air, kindly put out any wandering sparks." It's amazing how fast opinions cool at arm's length over hot coals. The rhythm tricks are small and human. The teller draws vowels long enough that your breath follows like a calf following a bell. Fingers keep time, not clapping, never sharp. This is a night made of velvet, just a thumb stroking the rim of the bowl, a foot finding the same slow beat the heart already knows. You've seen this cadence before in the two-note throat clear that pulled Section 1 into being in the bowl taps that organized the chairs of Section 2. Now it's a whole toolkit tempo to settle the fidgety softness, to invite the skeptical, and pause to let laughter graze and move on. Light also has rules. Stone lamps, little cupped rocks fed with animal fat, and a twist of fibrous moss perch along the walls, their flames tame as held birds. Mainstream historical fact archaeologists have found such lamps in painted caves, their soot like signatures on ceilings. Tonight, one lamp is hooded with a sliver of hide so the flame can listen without dazzling the eyes. Shadows become couriers carrying cliffs and antlers onto the limestone to stand beside the teller's voice. You watch your own shadow nod in agreement and feel alarmingly influential. Quirky tidbit. The circle keeps a hum string a length of gut tied to a shell and stretched across a small hollow. Draw a thumb along it and it sighs like a contented wind. No concert, just a gentle undertone to thicken the air, a prehistoric ASMR that persuades shoulders to loosen. The first time you touch it, it purrs so happily you think you've tamed a very polite snake. Interruptions aren't banished, they're styled. Cough. The healer nudges a pebble across to you. Slow, sip water now, then breathe through folded hands so your cough goes to sleep with the rest of you. Sudden laugh at the wrong time. The teller plucks it like a berry and drops it into the plot 2 lines later so no one loses face. Historians still argue whether groups like this had fixed leaders or flexible context-based influence. But around this, hearth authority looks like water. Whoever can soothe, steers. Etiquette extends to the bones of the place. Keep hair tied when you lean in. Eyebrows are limited edition. Sit with your feet angled away from the coals, not because the fire keeps a diary of microaggressions, but because hot sandals and midnight are poor friends. Do not poke the flames absent-mindedly. If your stick catches and flings a spark into someone's lap, you will be recruited into the exalted position of ember herder for the next 7 breaths. Joke 2, the storyteller promises to sing your bravery song if you survive your own heroics. You promise to write it yourself and make it a lullaby. There is a rule about truth, and it isn't what you expect. True means useful. True like a good knot or a remembered ford, not necessarily true like a ledger. The teller may begin with the agreed signs. A feather balanced on a palm means this traveled to me from far. A pebble on the tongue briefly theatrically vows, I keep this from bitterness. It isn't courtroom truth. It's camp truth, tuned to help sleep stand guard rather than pace at the threshold. Historians still argue whether formal oaths existed in these contexts or whether gestures like these are our projection. But the effect is immediate. Everyone relaxes, as if the story itself has promised to tuck in its claws. Children get jobs because idle small hands are saboteurs with dimples. Spark watchers scan the hide floor for rogue glows and announce them in whispers. Smoke eyes study the plume for color changes that predict a shift in wind. The youngest are promoted to laugh keepers, tasked with catching the first giggle and holding it for later, so the tense parts can unspool undisturbed. Quirky extra, a dab of soot under the nose, is the badge of office, which also conveniently discourages nose-picking, a high honor for the community. Some rules are seasonal. In deep winter, the ring tucks closer and a hot stone wrapped in hide. The same trick that warmed your toes in Section 2 is nudged near the teller's feet so hands don't stiffen around words. In high summer, The circle widens, lamps dim, and story cadence shortens like shade at noon. If lightning has visited recently, a little water is flicked outward at the start, a friendly treaty with the sky. If predators have been brazen, the first tale is always a competent story. How we spotted planned prevailed, because bedtime is also a training ground, where fear is invited fed, then gently leashed. There's even a rule for disagreement. If you remember the trail turning left and the teller sends it right, you make a small spiral in the ash between your knees. An elegant little question mark the night can read. After the tale by Lamp Whisper, the teller asks you to teach your version, and by tomorrow night, 2 trails will meet in a clearing called Maybe. Joke 3, the elder says. When the spirits disagree, they draw spirals. When we disagree, we draw better spirals. What happens when someone breaks a rule? Nothing loud. The circle prizes quiet adjustments over spectacle. A stray critique is met with a pebble passed into the critic's palm warmth, travels into the skin, and the hand forgets how to cut. A fidgety foot is quietly weighted with a friendly dog. A wandering mind is reclaimed by a prop feather pebble bone placed with ceremony into the lap. You recognize the method's small interventions, constant as breathing, kind as good shade. Before the plot resumes its steady climb, the teller shows you the last and maybe simplest rule. The story isn't for you alone. It must fit every ear at once. The ember-chosen apprentice, the elder with knees like weather reports, the child whose dreams need a safe escort, the hunter whose body still carries the day's hard edges. You feel your posture soften into a listening. The group can share the way one blanket covers many sleepers. The humstring sighs again. The lamp lowers its voice. Someone's yawn ambles around the ring, collecting company until it returns to you, fuller and friendlier than when it left. Rules learned, you lean back by the exact measure that says, I know how to be inside this, the way the fire leans back under its ash lid when it knows it will be fed again at dawn. You can taste birch tar gum. Someone is passing behind you, smoky and sweet, a callback on your tongue reminding you the night remembers its own earlier jokes. The teller lifts their hand, and the circle's many small obediences click into one wide attention, clean quiet, warm enough to shape dreams. The storyteller rises with the torch, and you follow feet, whispering over packed earth breath, already adjusting to the cooler mouth of the cave. Warm air slides off your cheeks. Damp mineral breath meets you like a slow exhale from the mountain itself. The humstring sighs once as you pass someone, draws a thumb across it as a benediction, and the circle narrows into a procession. Shadows grow long and persuasive. Resin pops. The torch's pitchy smoke tastes like honey that decided to moonlight as thunder. You learn quickly to move like a flame, small, steady kind to corners. The lamp bearer carries a shallow stone saucer, cradling melted fat, and a moss wick, guiding light as if it were a tame animal. Mainstream historical fact. Such fat lamps found in painted caves from France to Spain burn low and long, their soot writing a second darker history above the pictures. Your eyes soften, discovering how limestone drinks light and offers it back in a slower, creamier language. The walls gleam where ancient hands smoothed the skin of the cave. Here and there, calcite curtains ripple like frozen rain. Then the pictures step forward. A bison as wide as your outstretched arms. Horses with manes like river grass. Aurochs shouldering the world. A lion drawn with the long, quick certainty of someone who has measured a lion with their heart rate. The torch flickers, and suddenly a bison with many legs is running the artist's layered limbs so the fire could animate them, a prehistoric flip book that works best when your breath is calm. You find yourself obligingly calm. Joke 1 wanders in easy as a friend. Late to the meal, welcome to the gallery opening. The storyteller murmurs, dress code is smoke-kissed. And yes, our canapes are strictly imaginary. Fingers trace without touching. The teller's hand skates the air an inch from the rock, translating line into voice. A row of dots becomes nights, counted toward a migration. A spray of short dashes turns into a wind that kept changing its mind. A cluster of marks near a bison's shoulder is retold as "here, here, be careful here." Historians still argue whether these signs record calendars, hunting tallies, or visions met on the inside of eyelids. But tonight, their work is bedtime's work to seat courage where fear usually sits, and to tuck warning into wonder so the children swallow it gladly. You notice the color grammar. Red ochre hums with iron. Charcoal gives quick, bold edges. Manganese black deepens to a velvet you could lean on. Quirky tidbit to make the hand stencils. Those ghostly negatives like stars in skin shape. The artist blows pigment from a hollow bird bone mouth, full of ochre and breath used like a brush. Every stencil is a kiss the wall kept. Some prints show missing or folded fingers. You've heard camp theories rituals. Frostbite sign codes, pranksters curling fingers to look dramatic for the wall. Joke 2 arrives on cue. If you see a 3-fingered hand, the storyteller winks. It might mean wisdom or a very cold glove. Echo becomes a collaborator. The teller stops where the cave answers best. A spoken word returns richer, as if the rock has added harmony. Mainstream historical fact researchers have found that some painted panels sit in places with unusual acoustic resonance. Clap and the cave applauds. The torch holder tests a spot with a few soft notes of bone flute. The bison seems to lean closer, listening with you. The air hums like a sleeping drum. Light sculpting is part of the script. The torch travels sideways and the horses lengthen. Lift the flame and the horns crown higher. Lower it and the animals melt into night like secrets told once and then kept. The teller choreographs the flame as if it's a character. Timid, bold, shy, proud. So the story can breathe in 3 directions at once, line, light, and voice. You feel your eyelids grow kindly heavy, a compliment to both art and oxygen. Don't touch your body. Knows even before your mind writes the rule down. The lamp bearer shields the wick, while the teller points out a smudge of older soot where someone once forgot themselves. A tiny laugh straightens everyone's hands. Respect is a hearth rule that learned to walk. You lean in as far as breath allows, and no farther the way you leaned into the jokes without smothering them. The path kinks tighter. You duck under a natural lintel and enter a chamber with low ceiling and bright intentions. Here, handprints constellate around a bison like guards or grandchildren. You hold your hand up to one smaller, broader scar along the thumb mound, and the cave briefly fits you like a glove made by time. The wall remembers us better than we remember ourselves. The storyteller whispers, then spoils their own solemnity with a grin. Joke 3. Unless you snore, then everyone remembers you perfectly. Signs complicate like weather. A vertical bar near a herd is translated as "stand 2 bars as move at dawn a crosshatch by the river lion, as avoid this mood." Historians still argue whether these readings are anything but modern wishfulness. Maybe the marks were practice strokes or ownership tags, or the equivalent of Kuba was here yet. Yet around this torch, the interpretations are functional. They teach by pointing at pictures your dreams can carry without spilling. Tools show up like minor characters with good lines. A palette of flat stones dusted with ochre and black. A chewed birch tar bead ready to seal a cracked lamp. A brush made from split twig and hair. The binder tonight is spit reliable, portable, and free, though sometimes marrow fat gives pigments more velvety manners. You try the painter's purse trick, tucking a little leather pouch into your belt, as if it were always there. The cave makes artists out of you by treating you as if you already are one. Quirky side path. A patch of moon milk. Soft, creamy calcite ooze has been scraped for generations to dab on sore throats and tiny scrapes. It sits near a painting, pale as a held breath. Does it heal? Maybe a little. Does it soothe? Absolutely. And a soot mark high on the wall, far higher than any arm can reach, suggests scaffolding once stood here. Logs wedged and lashed a platform balanced to lift a body into a conversation with the roof. You feel suddenly proud of strangers you will never meet. The storyteller stitches a small caution into the art's softness. See this bison's flank. A dark gash runs through the pigment, not drawn but broken by time. Rock falls, they murmur. We paint the earth edits. A shrug like a lullaby. The moral isn't don't paint. It's keep telling, so the picture can stand back up inside a voice when the wall decides to sleep. You tuck that away with your ember duties and spark etiquette, another thread in the blanket you're weaving without quite trying. Your nose adapts. You stop smelling smoke and start smelling everything else, the cool mineral, the faint sweetness of fat, the sharp iron whisper of ochre near your lip. Your feet learn the floor's grammar-slick limestone, here gritty calcite there, a puddle's skin waiting like a quiet mirror. Someone behind you yawns and fails to own it. Your mouth answers in solidarity, and the yawn completes its lap of the chamber warmly received by all parties. At the far end, the wall slopes into dark like a story that refuses to end where you expect. The torch is lowered, the lamp hooded, and the animals return to their stable behind the eyes. You trail a fingertip a hand's width from the bison's back, telling yourself the line without sound, then step away, leaving only your breath behind. On the walk back, the cave releases you finger by finger. Outside, stars resume their posts, like patient guards changing shifts. The circle will want what you saw, and you are ready to hand it over not as a lecture but as a warm stone slipped into a friend's palm. Pictures first, then pauses, then that long, slow laugh when someone asks if the three-fingered hand means wisdom, and you answer, or a cold glove. The camp's rules travel with you. The quiet, the care, the held breath, and the wall's voice continues under your ribs, low and kind, long after the lamp is set down, and the torch writes its last wisp into the night. Back from the painted chamber, you settle again, where your heel knows the groove, and the night adjusts its shoulders. The storyteller doesn't start with words this time. They start with breath, yours, theirs, the fire's braiding 3 slow strands, until the ring loosens like a knot that remembers how to be rope. A bowl becomes a drum only when a palm asks kindly. A shell becomes rain when shaken overhide. A hollow bone becomes wind that learned a melody and refuses to forget it. The first sound is humming. Not the, I know all the lyrics, kind, the my chest is a soft cave kind. The healer sets the note low, round not far from the place where your heartbeat lives, and everyone lets their throats glow to match. You feel the hum as much as hear it, a little massage for your sternum, the same medicine the hum string gave you when you walked toward the paintings. Joke 1 leans in with a yawn. The elder winks and says, if you accidentally purr, we'll count it as harmony. You accidentally purr, it counts. Then the rattle. It's just a pouch stitched from leftover deer hide seeded with wolf phalanges that click and tumble like friendly pebbles. Quirky tidbit, those toe bones light hard naturally. Hollow make a whispering rattle you can play without waking babies. A babysitter approved by both spirits and exhausted parents. The rhythm is designed for eyelids, not feet. No sharp corners, only curves. The rattle's voice walks the perimeter, patrolling gently, telling the air, all is well. All is well until even the dog forgets he meant to supervise. The flute doesn't announce itself, it arrives. A wing bone from a vulture polished where fingers have memorized it, breath holes burned or reamed with stone patience, mouthpiece snugged by tooth and will. Mainstream historical fact. Bone flutes this old Aurignacian from caves like Holyfels in the Swabian Jura have been dated to around 40,000 years, among the oldest instruments ever found. Their notes still playable by careful modern hands. Tonight, this one isn't for virtuoso displays, it plays bedtime. 2 notes 3, a little descent, like dusk sliding down a hill. You notice how the teller builds the room with sound. Humming is the ground, rattle is the fence. Flute is the path inside. The bowl gets a heartbeat. When brushed with fingertips, not struck clop, becomes thrum thrum becomes see, see becomes let go. Historians still argue whether music like this was ceremonial practical for herding hunting courtship, or mostly for joy. But your muscles vote for useful right now, and your jaw unhinges into a smile it didn't ask permission to make. Intervals are chosen like herbs, a sleepy minor. Here a snug fifth, there a little neighbor note that leans and resolves with a sigh recognizable in every century. The flute lingers just above your resting breath rate, so you breathe along without trying, the way you followed bowl taps and lamp shadows before. You think of the painted bison's many legs and realize the melody wears the same trick notes layered, so your mind supplies the motion no pushing required. Joke, 2 pads and wearing slippers. The storyteller lifts. The flute pretends it's picky, tilts it as if listening. He says he only plays requests, they murmur. Someone whispers, something soothing. The flute obliges with a little tune that could be a brook, telling a polite story about polished stones. You have never felt so agreed with by a piece of hollow bird. Between phrases, a lullaby unfolds in words so plain they feel like warmed milk. It's not philosophy. It's instructions disguised as comfort. Sleep on the leeward side. Let the fire eat small and often. If the owl calls twice, count your youngest. The lines rhyme just enough to remember, not enough to snag. You try one under your breath, and it fits like the hide pillow you didn't know your shoulder wanted. Mainstream historical fact, tucked like a blanket corner. Some Upper Paleolithic flutes were made from swan or vulture bones. Their finger holes placed with surprising precision suggest scales rather than random toot systems, not accidents. You see that system tonight in the way the teller tests the air with a fragment of phrase, then repeats it lower, then lower still, slipping your thoughts down a gentle staircase until even the stubborn ones forget which way was up. A fringe leaning aside slips in tasting of the kind of speculation you're not supposed to love, but do. Some in the camp say the flute can mimic birds so well that wolves pause curious buying hunters the heartbeat they need. Others say the flute is for the opposite, a decoy for anxious minds that would otherwise keep pacing. Historians still argue whether instruments doubled as practical tools or lived mostly in ritual. Your eyelids argue for an inclusive solution. Use what works. Name it song sleep later. Babies notoriously skeptical of theory cast the deciding vote. A small one mumbles fists, unclenching nose badge of Laughkeeper still visible from earlier, and the entire ring melts an inch. The rattle shifts to a slower shuffle. The bowl finds the same tempo as rocking fur. The flute's breath barely fogs the night. Quirky tidbit, someone produces a sleep whistle, not a whistle at all, just a hollow reed capped at one end. Blow across it, and it murmurs like a cave's throat after rain. They aim it not at ears, but at the hide roof, so the sound rains back soft and directionless, the prehistoric version of a white noise machine. You think of the fan the intro told you to switch on and grin at the perfect rhyme across ages. The teller sings a verse about Mammoth Auntie rocking the snow with her footsteps, and you feel the comedy arrive early to bow. Joke 3 bows too, Mammoth Auntie says, if you don't sleep, you carry tomorrow's wood. The children threaten to hibernate on command. Adults consider the offer with priestly seriousness and then yawn theatrically as proof of compliance. Not everything goes right on purpose. The flute squeaks once deliberately. The circle laughs gently as if a sparrow slipped on dew. This, too, is part of the hush technology, the tiny breach that proves no one will be punished for being human. After the chuckle, the next note lands softer than forgiveness. You store that technique beside the spark snuffer, the ash dab on the wriggler's brow, the spiral drawn in soot. For maybe, a short call and response turns to fog. The teller sings, "When the wind forgets our names and the ring answers." We tell them back, then lower, then only mouths moving, then only a breath that shapes the words without letting them out. It's astonishing how much sound silence can hold, when everyone agrees to put it there. You think of the hot stone wrapped in hide that warms feet in winter, and realize music does the same for the mind. A stone in the coals of attention, banked radiating, keeping meaning alive till morning. You remember the cave's painted legs, and the wall's echo that clapped back the three-finger hands, and the bone-blown kisses of ochre. Now that same breath floats over the circle, coloring your inner walls with a gentle promise that nothing toothy will be invited through the door. The rattle thins to a few shy clicks. The bowl becomes a tide that forgot how to be loud. The flute repeats the first little staircase, but with one step removed, as if the melody is already halfway home. A moth circles and lands on the flute hand, stays for one contented beat, then skates away with impeccable timing, clearly booked elsewhere. You consider asking it for lessons in bedtimes and decide to let it invoice you in dreams. The final phrase doesn't end. It hangs a moment, a hammock strung between two quiet posts, and then the teller lowers the bone to their lap palm, covering its mouth like an old friend sharing one last secret. Your body understands the cue before your brain arranges its consonants. Shoulders sink, tongue finds the roof of your mouth and parks. Eyes draw warm curtains. Somewhere a baby sighs, the universal receipt delivered, signed asleep. You are not asleep, not yet. You are the ember chosen, remembering your duty. But sleep is sitting beside you with extremely persuasive arguments. If the hyena of Section 2 poked its nose in now, you suspect it would lie down and ask for a lullaby too. The elder lifts two fingers, the sign for hold this softness. You hold it like a feather that used to be a road. The fire approves, with a small satisfied pop agreed, or damp wood. You decide to take it as applause, and the night purrs along with the bowl, a choir of things that know how to be gentle. The fire drops to a velvet purr, and the limestone beside the hearth becomes a silver screen that never needed to be invented. The storyteller pinches the lamp's wick, with wet fingers dims it to a bead, and then brings a folded hide between flame and wall. The hide is thin, drum-tight, rubbed with fat until it gleams. Your breath hushes to match. With one hand, the teller lifts the lamp higher. With the other, they unfurl the hide so its edge throws a crisp horizon on the rock. Suddenly, a rabbit ear rises where there was only stone, then a muzzle, then snap wolf jaws that look close enough to adjust your life choices. A child squeaks. The wolf blinks. The jaws soften back into a playful hand. Your shoulders laugh without moving. You've done this with bedsheets and flashlights. They do it with tallow and patience. The lamp's flicker turns fingers into animals, and animals into warnings, gentle enough to squeeze. Mainstream historical fact. Simple fat lamps with moss or plant fiber wicks are found across Upper Paleolithic sites. Their low, unsteady flame would have made shadows animate and stretch a built-in projector long before projectors got smug. The teller plays the brightness like an instrument, closer for giants, farther for sprites, sideways to make antlers that look like they grew out of the rock while you were blinking. Joke 1 pads in with a wagging tail. A shadow dog appears, sniffs the stew, and sneezes so dramatically the lamp almost believes it. The circle blesses the sneeze with the two-tap bowl rhythm, and the dog politely sits. You feel your body loosen, a reminder that suspense can be cozy when you can see the hand inside the puppet. The props are simple. A strip of hide cut with a notch that becomes a beak, a twig that turns into a horn when held at the right angle, a small pierced shell that when spun gives the shadow a whirring halo, like a moth auditioning for sainthood. Quirky tidbit, someone has a bladder skin pocket thin as breath smeared with resin to make it slightly translucent. Pass the lamp through it, and the light softens to fog a prehistoric diffuser that smooths edges until even the wolves look like they want warm milk. You try it, and the cave seems to exhale. The teller knows your eye better than you do. In low light, your vision flips to its night mode. Rods take over color, and detail rent a quiet room, and motion suddenly matters more than edges. The lamp dips, and the shadow grows. And your brain, eager to help, fills in teeth you didn't actually see. Historians still argue whether prehistoric artists and storytellers intentionally engineered these illusions, whether bison with many legs and hand clusters were staged for flicker, or whether the magic is a happy accident of fire and limestone. Either way, tonight, the method is deliberate as a lullaby. They begin with a caution thinly disguised as a game. Hands become a little herd of goats, and a low strip of hide turns into a cliff edge. A tiny cough of wind. Someone flutters the hum string for a sighing backdrop, and the goats shuffle away from the drop. See, the shadow says without saying. Edges do not care how brave you are. You absorb the lesson like the stone absorbs warmth, which is to say, completely and on a delay. The show gets bolder. 2 hands together become a cave lion, broad-headed and sure. The lamp rises, the lion grows, and a hide held in front of the light makes its mane ripple with invented wind. The circle leans back just enough to tell the nervous parts of the group that they are seen. Joke 2 calms those parts with impeccable timing. The lion opens its mouth and coughs up a very offended rabbit. Relief arrives like rain. A small drama plays out. A long shadow you recognize yourself. Chin noble eyebrow frankly excellent meets the lion. The long shadow remembers the rule about eyes. Don't offer them the rule about wind move leeward. The rule about cliffs go around never over. And the rule about noise hum. Just enough to sound bigger than you feel. The lion shrinks as the lamp lowers. The human shrinks too, on purpose teaching humility without making it feel like losing. By the time the lamp settles back to its bead, the lion is pocket-sized and asleep behind the hide. You can't help it. You pat the wall. The healer contributes a different kind of silhouette. A hand with 3 fingers curled. 2 extended shadow signs you've seen painted in Section 4, now performing live. The signs narrate without voices, stay gather quiet. Listen. Laugh later. You mouth along. The elder spots your accuracy and gives you the tiniest nod which hits your chest, like a hot stone wrapped and tucked under winter furs. Recognition warms as efficiently as any lamp. Now the hides come out a larger one, punctured with 2 eye holes, and a fringe of cut slits that make a shaggy outline on the wall. Held between lamp and rock, it becomes the idea of a beast, the kind that nibbles courage and spits out caution. But the holes are small. The slits silly, and the edges wobble when a child giggles. The beast is demoted from nightmare to bedtime pet in under a minute. You witness the alchemy you came for, fear domesticated into a story animal that eats scraps and answers to its name. Mainstream goes tender again. The storyteller dips the wick, lowering the light until the room's edges blur. Fat lamps do that. No harsh boundary between lit and unlit, just a long, forgiving gradient where imagination strolls without tripping. The shadow game now is all suggestion. The curve of a horn, a pause, brief stamp. A flock of birds implied by 4 finger flicks and a breathy hup. The hum string is stroked. Somewhere a bone flute quotes 2 notes from earlier, and you smile at the callback, a secret handshake with yourself. Joke 3 steals the scene, as all good small creatures do. A mouse shadow scampers across the wall, 2 knuckles and a thumb, nothing more, and the elder gasps in mock outrage. He didn't sign the pebble contract. The mouse pauses, signs an imaginary pebble with absurd sincerity, and the circle applauds, as if paperwork has saved us all. You file that away next to the ash spiral for maybe comedy used, like flint, to spark agreement rather than scorch it. A brief fringe-leaning moment tiptoes in. Someone hums about cave glowworms. Children insist they exist, adults shrug like philosophers, and a few tiny dots of resin on the wall catch and hold the lamplight long enough to blink once. Not as bright as stars, not as real as wishful thinking, but just enough shimmer to upgrade the hush to awe. Historians still argue whether such tricks were ritual or recreation, but your spine votes both. More, it works, Let it be. The shadow games end the way good stories do, by becoming quiet enough to live inside you. The teller lowers the hide. The lamp returns to the floor, its light leaking up like a secret shared under blankets. Your own shadow sits where you sit shallower, now friendlier, like it's had a snack and a chat and decided to behave. You think of the three-finger stencils. The bone-blown ochre kisses the humstring's sigh, the bowl's tide, the flute's staircase, and see how every tool so far has been used to teach your nervous system the same slow dance notice name: shrink, smile, sleep. The spark snuffer stands ready unneeded tonight. Still, the firekeeper gives the moss pad an affectionate pat, like a lifeguard thanking a calm sea. You reach for the birch tar bead, smoky sweet, and chew once twice, letting the flavor carry you back through the cave's gallery, where animals run when flames flicker and settle when breath does. The elder lifts 2 fingers, hold this softness. You do, and the wall holds it with you, a silver screen folding itself into a silver pocket, somewhere behind your ribs. Somewhere in the camp, a hyena laughs at nothing in particular the way they do when the moon tips just right. Usually that sound makes your heart do cardio. Tonight, it makes your eyelids heavy and your smile a little stubborn. You've just watched hands make monsters manageable and hides turn teeth into bedtime metaphors. If the hyena wants an audience, it can book the matinee. The midnight show is spoken for. You tilt your face to the sky, and the night answers with 1,000 quiet yeses. Smoke thins into a dark blue river. Sparks join the stars for a breath, and then choose gravity again. The storyteller doesn't point right away. They let your eyes adjust the way they taught your ears to find the bowl's tide and your skin to hear the hum string. When your pupils bloom and the world turns generous, a fingertip lifts and traces a slow arc from the cave mouth to the river bend of light overhead. Sky Road, they whisper, same voice they use for rules that don't want to feel like rules. The Milky Way pours from horizon to horizon, a pale dust of spilled stories. Mainstream historical fact. Different peoples have long read this band as a path migrant's trailbird road ancestor bridge. Its steady east-west sweep, a calendar you can carry on your back. Tonight, you carry it in your neck as you lean, and the vertebrae click into place like beads that missed each other all day. The teller stitches in landmarks you can actually find 3 bright sparks in a neat row. Your old friends from the cave mouth rise like embers that forgot to fall. Belt they nod, and your brain obligingly gives the giant a stick and a swagger. A smudge of clustered diamonds boils where the dark is otherwise well behaved. Bee nest, someone murmurs. And your mouth almost says the name many mouths give it, Pleiades, before remembering that names wear many coats. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 if you squint kindly. Quirky tidbit: most eyes see 6 sisters easily. A few brag about 9. If you claim 15, the elder recommends lying down until honesty returns. Joke 1 lands with that gentle sarcasm that keeps pride from spraining itself. Your body already knows the value of this ceiling. A line of stars scraping the horizon means dawn is busy getting dressed. A bright wanderer near the moon predicts gossip in the camp. A murmuring ribbon of green aurora far north on years when the sky remembers to dance upgrades children to philosophers for an entire week. Historians still argue whether certain ice age dot clusters on carved bone and cave walls record these same constellations. Some hold that a knot of points above a painted aurochs is Taurus with its bee nest. Others cite its account of kills or days, or the artist proving they could hold 15 dots in their head without sneezing. Your neck votes for belief. Your sleepier shoulder votes for both. Can be true if it helps us yawn. The sky keeps time better than any drum. A star rises earlier as the year tilts forward. The bee nest vanishes into the sun's glare and returns weeks later like a caravan right on schedule. Mainstream historical fact. Earth's axis wobbles precession over a long, slow cycle around 26,000 years, which means the North Star changes across ages. In much of deep prehistory, there was no bright pole standing guard where Polaris does now. The teller turns this into a bedtime shrug. If the sky can drift and still be useful, so can you. You oblige with a small expert drift toward drowsy. They draw sky roads with a feather, remember, when the feather was a road in section 1 and you follow. From the belt's 3 sparks, drop to the bright foot by the river. Climb back up to a cluster that looks like a little cooking tripod. Slide along to a crooked house whose roof leaks meteors in certain months. You won't remember every turn tonight, but your eyes will practice the habit of linking. And habits are the real map stories hide inside your bones. A practical lesson tucks itself under your ribs. If you are lost, the teller says softly, find the river up there. Its current is steady. Walk beneath it to keep your feet aimed between cold and colder. Joke 2 arrives to cushion the training. If you start walking along the sky, please tell us first so we can all cheer. The children promise to send a smoke signal. The elder pretends to sharpen a cheering voice. The camp glows an extra half shade as laughter comes back like a friendly echo. You notice the sky's hum repeats the lullaby's trick small patterns inside larger ones. A triangle here, a crooked W there, twins of stars elbowing each other like siblings who'll be fine as soon as the rattle resumes. The bowl offers 2 soft taps as if to agree. The bone flute quotes its 2-note stare, and the quote hangs just under the bee nest. Not literally, but in your head where it counts. Your breath slows to match the long distance between bright points. A fringe leaning aside wanders in like a moth. Some in the camp insist that glow would rot kissed by tiny living lights. Foxfire can be tucked under a hide to make a child brave enough to pee under stars. Others say that's just moss and optimism. You've seen wood that murmurs faintly at night, a foxfire smudged like a secret lantern. Quirky tidbit accepted. Skepticism snuggled right beside it. Historians still argue whether nightlights of fungus or beetle were ever used intentionally in the deep past. Your yawn accepts the idea on a provisional basis, pending dream review. The teller sets homework you won't mind doing. Find one small shape and adopt it. A triangle, a crooked line, a pair that always bicker. When you wake at night, and you will look for your adopted stars. If they've climbed, you've slept. If they've dived, you've slept well. If they're gone, you can boast at breakfast. Everyone's necks are already writing down their choices. You choose the crooked W because it looks like the ash spiral you draw for maybe. Private joke, private compass. Mainstream historical fact folded into the pillow. People have long tide cycles of animals and plants. To the sky's timing, certain fish run when a certain star returns to evening. Certain birds cross when the bee nest rises at dusk. You watch a bat scribble a signature and imagine it reading the same page, a tiny librarian that never needed a lamp. The camp's food stories are all sky footnoted, even when nobody says so. Berries sweeter under late summer meteors, fat easier to render when Orion, or whatever name he wears tonight, tips closer to dawn. Joke 3 ambles in, wearing hyena spots. The hyenas sent a complaint, the storyteller murmurs. They say the north keeps moving, and it's bad for business. The circle tisks in sympathy. The elder offers to draw them a better spiral. Somewhere at the scrub's edge, a real hyena snickers on brand, and your pulse barely lifts a win. You'd like to thank the sky for personally. You lie back literally now, and the world finds that angle where your spine and earth become cooperative. The warmed stone from section 2 nudges your calf. The birch tar bead clicks softly against a tooth. The humstring sighs from the other side of the ring, like wind rehearsing for autumn. The storyteller uses one finger to measure how the belt tilts. When it stands upright at this hour, they murmur the mornings taste different. You file the taste away next to the rule about lamps and eyebrows, and the trick where a mouse signs a pebble contract. Wish a child whispers, pointing at a falling ember from the stars. The healer answers in the universal grammar of comfort. Wish very small, very kind, and mostly for others. You do. And for a moment, the sky seems to approve by doing nothing at all, which is its calmest trick. Historians still argue whether counting notches on antler plaques were lunar trackers hunting logs or just polite doodles. The teller takes the debate and turns it into a bedtime nudge. If the moon shrinks, they say mornings grow teeth. If it swells fish, listen less, and lovers more. The camp's laughter is all eyes and no noise. Your lids grow pleasantly heavy, a phenomenon scientists of the far future will blame on melatonin and cozy dramatic lighting, but which you here attribute to a sky that knows how to sing in dots. The Milky Way looks like the paint dust you tasted in Section 4 when the wall kissed its own memory. The bee nest winks like a lamp behind a hide. The belt's 3 bright sparks could be the embers you juggled without burning your apprentice dignity. The circle breathes like one animal, and for a heartbeat, you feel 6,000 years of other people doing this exact thing, and 12,000 more warming up for their turn. The storyteller lowers their hand as if dimming the stars by courtesy. Hold this softness, the elder signs 2 fingers lit by starlight. You hold it palm open like a pebble contract with the night. Above you, the crooked W keeps being a maybe the bee nest, a promise the river of light, a road you can walk without moving. If sleep had a compass, it would be this. The animals arrive the way good teachers do, already woven into what you're thinking, already speaking a language you know. Your eyes are still full of star roads, so the storyteller lets a feather float between finger and thumb. Remember when a feather was a road, and it drifts down, lands on the rim of the bowl, and becomes Raven. Not a pet, not a puppet, a relative with boundary issues and excellent timing. Raven tilts his head at the sky and clicks like he's counting which stars are late for roll call, then hops to the firelight and starts your lesson with a theft. He steals your worry, pockets it somewhere in his slick feathers, and replaces it with a grin he clearly borrowed without permission. Raven teaches trade first. He drops a shiny pebble, a proper contract pebble, into your palm and waits. You give him a twist of sinew. He gives you a loud opinion. The circle chuckles. You're mid-bargain with a bird. Mainstream historical fact slips in wearing feathers. Ravens often trail wolves and humans to carcasses and can even lead them to food with purposeful calls. In return, they get safe access to scraps. The teller translates it for bedtime. If you leave the world a gift, the world leaves you a map. Joke 1 catches a draft and glides. If you don't leave Raven a gift, he leaves you a gift, usually on your best hide. Raven's syllabus includes mischief as survival tech. He tucks a bone pick under a flap, then accidentally reveals it, teaching every small pair of eyes how to hide and find tools. He mimics the 2-tap rhythm on the bowl so perfectly, the elder pretends to look offended. Then he mimics the elder's offended face, and the camp dissolves. You feel the lesson nest in your chest. Laughter is a leash for fear. When the wind forgets your name, tell it back with a joke and a path. From the dark near the cave mouth, a shape the color of decision steps forward. Lion Auntie, the maneless kind, the walls like to remember. The lamp is low enough that she looks stitched out of shadow and muscle. She is not hungry tonight. She is busy being ancient and correct. The storyteller lets silence measure her before giving her a voice. I do not negotiate, Lion Auntie says without moving her mouth. I edit. Your spine takes notes respectfully. She teaches rule of 2 steps to the side when the wind shifts, 2 heartbeats of stillness before you move, 2 pairs of eyes scanning edges, never just one. You hear the earlier silhouette drama breathing. Hear the shadow lion that coughed up a rabbit, the lamp lowered to make pride small enough to manage, and you store the continuity like a breadcrumb trail. Historians still argue whether Gamalion depictions without manes mean females were overrepresented, males were indeed often maneless, or artists were simply painting urgency. Your body, which would like to remain undigested, votes whatever makes me cautious. Lion. Auntie pauses by the tidy ring of swept ash and sniffs. Clean camps taste terrible, she says. Keep it that way. Joke 2 prowls off satisfied, and the fire answers with a single polite pop. You again decide to read as applause. The elder tips 2 fingers hold this softness, and even the dog tries to purr. Patient Mammoth arrives last, as if time itself took a deep breath and put on a coat. She is the teacher of weight and weather, mother of sensible footsteps, aunt of not making drama out of snow. The storyteller brushes the humstring until it sighs like packed drifts under a heavy friendly foot, and the circle's chests rise and fall together as if the air just got thicker and kinder. Mammoth Auntie reminds you of her verse from the lullaby, rocking the snow with footsteps, and adds an extra line for tonight. If you don't sleep, you carry tomorrow's wood. Joke 3 is the sort that feels like a warm threat. Everyone nods with religious sincerity. Mammoth's lesson begins with a house. Quirky tidbit, yet real enough to feel like magic. When you picture it on the far cold plains, people stack great bones into circles, lash them with sinew thatch, the wind with hides, and make winter behave. Mammoth bone dwellings are a thing, and the phrase makes your mouth feel like it's chewing history. The teller strokes a palm in a slow round, as if tracing one such wall. Strong rings don't argue about which bone is most important. Mammoth Auntie rumbles. They lean. You remember your ring leaning too, how bodies found distances that soothed, how rules flowed like water, how the ember chose you without bureaucracy. The animal teachers are only pointing at what you already practiced with hands and shadows, and stars respect as a method, humor as a tool, patience as a blanket. Raven hops back in with a group project. He wants you to listen for his cousins in the scrub. Their calls can be maps, gossip, warnings, or comedy. Tonight, they sound like 2 squeaky hinges and a lucky accident. The teller translates, if you hear 3 laugh, pause. If you hear 2 laugh, look up. If you hear no laugh, check your pockets. It's not ornithology, it's bedtime engineering, transforming a mess of sounds into simple cues you might actually remember when the night tips its chair. Lion. Auntie doesn't do calls, she does posture. She shows the difference between running and remembering you have knees. A sloped shoulder means I can be persuaded to disapprove elsewhere. A squared one means you have my full gourmet attention. You practice the sloped shoulder until you look like a very handsome hill. The camp approves. The shadow on the wall approves. Even the hyena out in the scrub gives a grudging chuckle like a critic surprised by joy. Mammoth Auntie instructs your feet. Wide steps in crusted snow. Narrow where the melt hides under reeds. Pause when gusts line up the grasses so they all nod one way like agreeable elders. She teaches you to bank your warmth like a hearth, to cover your heat under layers the way coals sleep under ash, and to wake softly, adding fuel small and often. You hear the hearth rule repeat, gentle and insistent, like the bone flute's 2-note stare. Many tools, one lesson rehearsed until it becomes your instinct. The teller pulls a thread from the animal teachings back to the pictures. Those bison with many legs were not just artist flex. They were a way to show motion and maybe even ritual power. They were also a cinema for warning wrapped in awe. Raven says, bring a gift. Lion says, be small on purpose. Mammoth says, build circles that can winter. Every creature is a mnemonic embroidered on a felt. You'll carry into sleep. The ember in your ear from section 1 is glowing again. A child curls into a parent and whispers, which animal am I? The healer answers without even moving lips. Tonight, your mouse who signs his paperwork. The circle grins, remembering the pebble contract from the shadow games, and the child signs the air with dramatic penmanship. You realize the menagerie is also a community mirror. Raven as the sly cousin who can barter a cloud. Lion as the no-nonsense aunt who fixes fights by looking at them. Mammoth as the grandparent who can give a full lecture with one long hug and a bowl of something steaming. Mainstream fact takes a dog-shaped detour and sits beside you. The teller mentions that in a cave far away, the floor still keeps a record. A child's small footprints meander beside the prints of a big canid through soot and time. Some say dog, some say wolf. Both walked where pictures breathe. Historians still argue whether that companion was a very early dog or a wolf humoring a friend. Your heart chooses the version that makes bedtime softer and promises to revisit the debate in daylight. In any case, you tuck the image beside Raven's trade. Lions edit mammoths' patience walking with animals isn't new. It's family tradition. The ring rotates through animal voices for the sake of practice and laughter. Someone does a raven call so accurate, the actual ravens file for copyright. Someone tries a lion rumble and scares their own stomach. Someone whispers a mammoth lullaby in a register so low, it might be coming from the floor. Between each imitation, the elder draws a tiny ash spiral, maybe just to remind you that certainty is a wonderful guest and a terrible landlord. Your gum tastes like birch smoke and the edge of winter. Your fingers smell faintly of ochre from when you almost touched the wall and then didn't. Your ears still hum with the bone flute's smallest stare. Raven steals one last look at your pocket. You let him see the pebble, but not the sweet tucked under it, which earns you the bird's equivalent of a wink. Lion ante yawns so wide the night folds its arms and behaves. Mammoth ante leans against the weather until the weather thinks about its tone. The storyteller lowers the feather. Animals move back to their posts, some on walls, some in brush, one or two in your socks drawer of a heart. The ring breathes as one blanket. If fear arrives later, it will have to present its credentials and wear a bell. Your teachers issued new policies and the night signed them in soot. You settle your heel into the groove that knows your name and feel the camp lean around you, a circle of bones that doesn't argue a soft law enforced by laughter and long memory. Night likes to put on a bigger coat than it deserves. A wind finds the cave mouth and learns vowels. Reeds at the river turn into gossiping teeth. The scrub throws back the hyena's laugh as if it ordered an encore. You feel your shoulders prepare for nonsense, and the storyteller sees it the way a good firekeeper sees a spark thinking about a field trip and reaches for the kit that shrinks fear to pocket size. First, tool a name. Bogey wind, they whisper, pinching the lamp's wick a shade lower, so shadows grow friendly, not loud. Echo guest. Footstep that returns. Naming is not surrender, it's a leash. The ring repeats the names like you repeat the bowl's 2 taps, and already the noises sound less like meteors and more like neighbors. Joke 1 strolls in with a straight face. If the bogey wind asks your name, tell it, borrowed hide. He'll try someone else who likes paperwork. The mouse from Section 6, notable signer of pebble contracts, would approve. Second tool, a measure. The healer unties a plaited cord and drapes it across your palm. 2 breaths long, they say no more. When the wind moans, you measure exactly 2 breaths of attention. Inhale, exhale, and then return your eyes to the lamp. Fear that won't fit inside 2 breaths gets a pebble contract and a place on layaway the ash spiral for maybe drawn with polite precision between your knees. Historians still argue whether such micro-rituals leave traces we can see in the archaeological record, or if we're projecting cozy meaning backward onto crumbs. Tonight, the crumb becomes a cookie, and the cookie is called calm. Thur tu ul, a joke that works like a doorstop. The teller cups a hand to the cave mouth and says, "We're closed, try the valley." The wind obliges by sounding mildly offended. The ring giggles and your jaw loosens into the same grin it wore when Raven sold you your own pebble back in Section 8. Laughter is a leash. Raven was right. The echo arrives to audition for Spirit's second lead. The teller calls into the dark ho, and the cave sends your voice back ho, a heartbeat late, and 1 note lower like a cousin who borrowed your coat and improved it with mischief. Mainstream historical fact. Deep chambers and curved passages can create repeats, flutters, and standing tones. Some painted panels sit where claps and calls return with unusual richness, turning rock into a collaborator. Tonight's rule is simple. Once means stone, twice means stone in a good mood, 3 times means you're talking to yourself, and that's adorable. Joke 2 follows like a helpful dog. If the echo interrupts, give it the moss snuffer so it can put out its own enthusiasm. The bowl answers with 2 soft taps. Even your nerves laugh. Quirky tidbit walks in wearing a string of teeth. Not yours, deer and fox. The storyteller lifts a little neckband woven with pierced canines and shell beads, a soft clatter like rain on bark, noise that belongs to us. They murmur so strange noises have less room. Does it fend off spirits or just make you feel companioned? Both are acceptable answers. Mainstream historical fact, pierced animal teeth and shells thread. Ice Age graves and camps ornaments that may have been status, beauty memory, or amulet. Small portable declarations that follow the body through dark and day. Historians still argue whether these beads were primarily currency, costume, or comfort. Your fingers rubbing the cool tooth decide they are all 3 when the night gets ideas. The wind whines through a crack like a flute with stage fright. You remember the bone flute's 2-note stare from section 5 and answer with it. Just 2 notes low and kind, and the wind's voice seems to learn manners. The elder nods as if you've passed an exam you didn't know you were taking. Echo likes a partner, they say. Give it one and it behaves. Your lungs file that under tools that don't need sharpening. The healer brews a sip. You're meant to sip like a secret. A hot stone, our old winter friend dives into a small hide cup of water, and into this goes a pinch of crushed willow bark and mint-smelling leaves. You know the mint from days when bellies argue with rivers. You don't know the bark, only that the steam smells like rainy wood. Mainstream historical fact, willows carry salicylate. Far in the future, someone will call it aspirin. But for now, it's pain's quiet enemy and worry's occasional cousin Tamir. The sip travels from your mouth to your shoulders and writes a note there, return to low. You obey. A little theater tames another noise. The firekeeper raises a hide flap so the lamp's draft stops quarreling with a crack in the rock. The whistle vanishes like a complaint handled by a professional ant. Edge's lion. Auntie taught you. Go around, not over, and you see the lesson here too. Soften the angle and sound forgets to sharpen its teeth. Tracks play tricks under starlight. You step out and find prints that look bigger now than they did at dusk. Footstep that returns the teller reminds you, lifting a stick marked with your own foot length. You set it alongside the suspicious print and discover it's yours, stretched by melt and moon. The ring votes to keep you anyway. You blush into the appropriate chord of the hum string. The rule joins the others in your pocket measure before you marry a fear. Fringe drifts in polite as you cradle your cup. One of the cousins swears a knot in a cord catches a nightmare, and that you should hang the cord just outside the hide door until morning eats it. Another says it only works if the knot is made with your eyes closed, and a raven feather involved, which sounds like very good theater to you. Historians still argue whether dream-catching practices in deep prehistory existed, or whether we're back projecting from later people's ways. The camp's compromise is perfect. If the knot helps you sleep, the knot is real. More rules dressed as play. If wind calls your name, the elder says, with a straight face that fools no one. Answer with tomorrow's chore list. He'll move on. Joke 3 lands, belly first on the furs. The children try it immediately, and the wind, accurately judging the level of admin being offered, decides the valley does in fact have better prospects. The pebble comes back into service, bless its hardworking geology. You press a worry into the warm little stone as if packing it with flour, then set it at the ring's edge where worries go to warm without misbehaving. In the morning, the fire gets a new meal. Small concerns first. Large ones later, all fed to heat after being named, measured, and laughed at once. Small and often mammoth auntie advised about fuel. The same method digests fear. Red ochre returns as both art and armor. A finger swipe across your brow smells like iron and salt. The healer claims the line confuses biting things, and persuades dreams to walk behind you instead of ahead. Practical and poetic in one smear, like the lamps that paint and soothe, the hum string that sings and measures. The cave keeps inventing tools that do two jobs while only asking to be held. A bat uses you as a landmark and writes its silent cursive just over your head. The river answers with tiny vowel sounds in the reeds. Hyena gives the night a rating out in the scrub. You catch yourself about to rate it back and grin into your cup. The echo, respectful, now sends your grin home to you, one size larger. The lamp accepts a breath and steadies to a coin-sized sun. You lie into your space the way a stone settles into river groove. The hot stone near your calf, thank you. Section 2 radiates its long, unhurried kindness. The bone flute's stare repeats behind your breastbone on its own, no hands required. You tuck a cord knot into the hide pole near the door, not because you have to, but because the gesture is part of the lullaby. Name, measure, smile, sleep. Before eyes drift, the storyteller signs a last reminder. 2 fingers forward. Hold this softness. Then a small circle over the heart. Keep the ring. And finally a point at the cave mouth. Edges exist, and we are ready. Everything you've practiced tonight. Pebble, contract, ash, spiral, hum, string, lamp, shadow, star, road. Animal Teachers has been a rehearsal for this unimportant miracle staying. Staying here inside your warm, reasonable body while the world rehearses drama outside. It's not that the night has lost its teeth. It's that your pocket is full of gentling tools, and your hand knows where each one sleeps. Sleep pads closer, checks your pebble paperwork, and stamps your forehead with approval you pretend to find surprising. The echo laughs once, which is stone. The wind tries one vowel and settles for a sigh. The hyena mutters about inconsistent management standards and clocks out. The cave breathes for you. While you begin the short job, you're suddenly perfect at forgetting fear on purpose. The camp decides it has earned the right to be ridiculous. You can feel the shift. The hush that kept monsters pocket-sized now loosens into a grin, and the storyteller swaps the lamp's solemn bead for something jauntier, still soft, still safe, but with room for elbows. The hum string sighs a new chord. The bowl taps a mischievous 2.5, and suddenly, the night is a stage with a dress code of soot and good intentions. Raven naturally opens the show. He struts with a feather behind his ear, a feather that was already behind his ear, but now it's unionized and caused a perfect imitation of the elder's ahem. The elder answers with the real thing, which is the same note in a better suit, and the circle wheezes politely. Raven demonstrates the pebble contract signing and countersigning until even the mouse from the shadow game would beg for arbitration. Then he swaps the signed pebble for the exact same signed pebble and bows. You clap because confidence, this audacious, deserves applause. Joke 1 lands with a soft thump when Raven produces a second feather from nowhere, your hair, and returns it with exaggerated legal solemnity. A prank begins to assemble itself out of ordinary objects. The firekeeper lays a flat flint core on a hide, sprinkles it with very serious ash, and announces a precision nap. You know enough now to respect conchoidal fractures, Flint's neat habit of breaking into beautiful, useful curves, and you also know the night wants a harmless disaster. Mainstream historical fact. Flint knapping sheds a halo of tiny razor flakes, debitage piles you can read in daylight, to learn where the making sat and how skill flowed. Tonight, the halo is more like a sparkly confetti. The keeper taps too gently, misses the platform. Taps again, and the flint sulks. Tap 3 finally bites the remover. Pops free, and the keeper committed comic lets it leap into an empty bowl as if they had planned a percussion solo. The ring applauds the bowl for its artistry. The bowl takes a bow. Next comes ritual spoof, which is like real ritual with knees unlocked. The healer wraps a hot stone in Hide Our Old Winter Friend and presents it as grand counsel of warmth. Everyone terribly serious asks the stone for advice about tomorrow. The stone, consulted by ear, recommends small and often leeward, and sleep first, proving that geology has never been wrong. You take your turn, press your cheek to the parcel, and hear your own pulse repeating the bone flute's two-note stare from Section 5. The healer declares that to be a very wise drum. Joke 2 peeks out when Lion Auntie's posture lesson from Section 8 gets repurposed as dance steps, sloped shoulder for humility, squared shoulder for comedy. You do both and look like a very diplomatic mountain. The storyteller breaks into a tale where the trickster hero, heavily raven-coated, must steal daylight from a jealous cloud. The theft is performed with nothing but a hide shadow, a pinched lamp, and that bladder-skin diffuser you loved in Section 6. Daylight shrinks to a wobbling coin, is tucked into a folded leaf, absolutely a hand, and then, in a move of high theater, accidentally rolls into the elder's lap. The elder pretends to panic and lights the lap with a second lamp to confuse the audience, then puts both lights away, like a conjurer reversing his own mischief. Historians still argue whether composite figures on cave walls, the antlered man who dances the lion-headed ivory statue record, masked performers, shamans, mid-transformation, or simply the way imagination draws shortcuts. Around this fire, the verdict is a shrug and a smile, whatever the originals meant. Play pretend now keeps your pulse well-mannered. Quirky Tidbit strolls through the laughter, wearing a grin carved in boar tooth. A laugh tooth charm the healer swears works better if you smile first. It's just a pierced canine polished by thumbs. There are plenty like it in graves and camps. But tonight, it is deputized as the badge of giggles. Whoever holds it must offer a joke or a harmless brag before passing it on. You accept the tooth with the seriousness of a newt at a tea party and announce, "I once carried all the wood for tomorrow." The ring oohs scandalized. You add, "It was a very small tomorrow." The ring forgives you immediately. The prank with the flint escalates into slapstick instruction, how not to sit on a fresh blade. The keeper positions a brand new flake perilously close to a careless rump, a volunteer wearing the universal expression for, "I trust you." Mostly then demonstrates the sacred practice of clearing the workspace. Blade up, points away, edges respected. It's 3 parts theater, 1 part OSHA, all lullaby. You watch the muscle memory get rehearsed under laughter's blanket and understand why. Jokes were invited training. Loves giggles. Fear adores them. Raven returns for a duet with Echo. He caws mine, the cave returns mine, and the two of them get into a territorial dispute, so petty it belongs in a Nest reality show. The teller translates. When you hear 2 of the same sound, it's stone practicing gossip. You repeat the rule from Section 9, once stone, twice stone, in a good mood, and the audience beams like you've passed your final bedtime exam. The pebble contract mouse played with 2 knuckles and a thumb. Casting is consistent scampers through the scene, signs the air with exaggerated legality, and gets carried off by applause. A mock initiation for the laugh keepers begins. Children must prove they can rescue a joke from the edge of a cliff. The cliff is a hide's edge held high. The joke is a word, teetering BBB bone. The child must complete it without falling into giggles until the last syllable. Of course, everyone fails perfectly, landing in laughter exactly on cue. The elder declares them fully qualified to manage adult seriousness. The adults pretend to submit resumes. Mainstream leans in softly again. The teller mentions footprints that show skipping steps in a cave floor child and grown-up hopping through puddled calcite traces of play that shadow the paintings. Maybe they were rehearsal. Maybe they were joy. Either way, the floor kept them. You see the same spirit now, your heels beating a gentle rhythm into the packed earth, the bowl adding purrs, the hum string weaving a low border. Play is not a break from ritual, it is its hinge. The ritual spoof gets one last flourish, a grand misfire of the lampwick that refuses to relight on command. The firekeeper performs shock, the ring performs scandal. Raven performs theft of responsibility, swooping in with a coal on a flake, very safe, very trained, and touching it like a knighting. The wick catches applause swells, and the keeper bows to Raven with mock humility you suspect is 60% real. Joke 3 saunters on stage. The spirits are impressed, the elder intones, or the moss is finally cooperating. We will take credit either way. You breathe the night like soup. The cooler air stirs your hair. The lamp's halo wrinkles the cave wall into friendly brows. Laughter has done its job. Worry's coat looks 2 sizes too big now. You think of the earlier lessons, pebble to name a fear ash spiral for maybe flint that behaves when asked kindly, star roads that make dawn predictable animals that teach in fur and rumor and feel how humor braided through each one without breaking the thread. Even mammoths carry tomorrow's woodline as a joke with boots on. A final bit of theater, the healer pretends to banish snoring by anointing the likely culprits with a solemn dab of mint fat under the nose. The mint is real. It opens airways. The anointing is drama. It opens permission to sleep loudly without shame. The snorers accept their mint crowns like nobility of the cozy kingdom. The storyteller draws the laugh-tooth's cord between thumb and finger, lets it clack once against a shell, and the sound is so small and pleased, you can't help matching it with your breath. The bone flute answers with the same two-step you've adopted into your lungs, and your diaphragm nods like an elder who has seen 20 winters and still laughs on cue. You realize that in this ring, laughter is not a leak from the serious container. It is one of the staves holding the container up. Hyena offers a late review from the scrubbed 3 notes of derisive poetry, and the ring clucks in sympathy for critics who work nights. Someone tosses a joke toward the bushes. We're closed. Try the valley. The wind, remembering the policy from Section 9 reroutes. The bowl gives 2 soft taps, the sign for thinning. The rattle shrugs its last handful of pebbly rain. The lamp settles to a warm coin again. You press your heel back into the groove it made an hour and a lifetime ago and feel the ground approve. The laugh tooth completes one more lap and stops at your knee, as if to say, guard the softness. You will with the ferocity of a pillow. Before your eyelids choose a longer word for heavy, the elder signs 2 fingers forward. Hold this softness. You do. And in that held breath, you feel what the pranks, spoofs, and flint slapstick were actually building the permission to let go without dropping anything important. The pebble contract is signed. The ash spiral waits for tomorrow's. Maybe the hot stone keeps its quiet promises, and the night, soothed and slightly flattered, tucks you in with its best impression of a blanket. The laughter thins to a friendly shimmer, and in that softened air, the storyteller lays a hide across their knees, like a map that doesn't want to admit it's a map. Let's play a quest, they murmur, and the ring perks up the way a fox perks at honest rustling. Quests here look suspiciously like chores that learned stagecraft, and you are delighted to be fooled. First mission, tame a string. The teller plucks a twist of plant fiber from a pouch nettle bast, maybe the bark that peels like ribbons when the river is in a good mood, and lets it dangle so you can see the twist, leaning into itself. Mainstream historical fact. Very old hands already knew this. A scrap of 3-ply cord clinging to a stone tool tells us that people in the deep past twisted, spun, and thought in rope, not just in stone. Your fingers learn the rhythm roll, pinch, lay, and soon the twist becomes a line that wants to be useful. Quirky tidbits: some here swear a knot holds better if you hum while making it. Others say the hum only keeps your fingers from arguing. Historians still argue whether bits of cord like that old scrap mean nets and woven bags were common, or whether we've only caught rare threads of a much larger cloth. You make 3 knots with names the camp will remember even if you don't. First, a sleeping loop, a snare's patient circle that holds still until tugged. Second, a hugging knot, the kind that clutches a stick like a friend you actually like. Third, a quick ear loop with a little handle you can pull when you want the whole thing to remember freedom. Joke 1 drops in with perfect timing. If you make the knot that ties itself when it hears the word chores, teach it my name first. The ring grants the request by acclaim. Second mission, follow a road that didn't ask to be one. A fire coal on a flake is your son, and the elder moves it slow as honesty, while you and 2 children ferry a pretend message across camp. The rules are hiding in plain sight. Read the grass. If it all nods one way, you go the other, because wind bullies edges and edges bully travelers. Read the dew. Bent sparkles mean someone else passed. Whole sparkles mean you get to be the morning's first rumor. Read the ground. Sharp-edged prints belong to now, soft-edged to earlier. A crushed ant trail says a heel was here and didn't ask permission. Measure before you marry. A fear the elder reminds you, and you catch the echo from Section 9 wearing new boots. Historians still argue whether those engraved lines on old antler plaques were lunar logbooks, hunt counts, or practice for thinking straight. You use them tonight as excuses to aim your feet and feel clever about it. The quest pretends to get urgent because urgency makes lessons stick. Our laugh tooth is missing. The healer gasps, clutching the charm from Section 10 with theatrical dismay. Find the borrower before snores begin. You follow clues that just happen to be trailcraft. A scuffed ash spiral? A maybe stepped on very suspicious? A raven feather trade evidence and giggle. Trap 2 pebbles near the hide door. A contract signed and countersigned by a mouse with excellent penmanship. The children play it straight as law, and you do too, because you like how your muscles pay attention when they're entertained. Third mission. Spring a snare without catching a friend. A bent sapling, a line of your new cord, a notched stick that pretends to be wiser than it looks. Mainstream historical fact, small game hunting in many foraging cultures uses simple snares and deadfalls. Quiet, patient tools that do the work while you warm your toes. The teller sets the mechanism with a showman's care, explains every part twice, and then accidentally triggers it with a puff of breath, so the stick leaps like a grasshopper and the noose bites air. You flinch, laugh, and file the physics where it belongs. Joke 2 arrives wearing your dignity. If the snare catches a snore instead of a rabbit, you may keep it. Weapons, not the bloody sort, the elegant kind, appear briefly as cameos. A sling from your new cord and a folded scrap of hide sends a pebble with a hiss you didn't expect. A long straight shaft rests beside a carved antler hook that the teller calls arm extender, because words are tools too. Mainstream historical fact. People long ago used spear throwers' levers that lengthen the arm and add snap to send darts farther than a shoulder dreams. Carved hooks and batons carved from antler are found where pictures breathe. Historians still argue whether those batons were mostly thrower parts, prestige pieces, or multi-tools that also guided straight shafts and straight behavior. The throw tonight is demonstration only. The lesson is not flight, but focus. Another knot becomes a backpack, another a shelter. The hugging knot hugs 2 poles into a little A-frame, while hides become patient roofs. You lash a ridgeline between 2 polite trees, and your loop that sleeps becomes a curtain that keeps wind gossip outside. The lamp behind the hide turns your shelter into a soft orange lantern, and you think of Section 6's diffuser, the bladder skin pocket that made even lion shadows sip warm milk. The camp has you practice striking camp in reverse. To unwrap, unlash, unloose the cord by pulling the quick ear. Leave nothing for hyena critics, the elder says, and the scrub offers a begrudging review you generously pretend is 5 stars. The storyteller smuggles track reading into a chase. A cousin runs off with the laugh tooth, and you pursue at training speed, noting bent stalks, a snagged hair, a footprint whose edges hold gossip. You find the thief near the river caught by a patch of stinging nettle. Every quest has a dragon, and you rescue both thief and tooth with admirable neutrality. Quirky tidbit. The healer rubs dock leaf on the sting plant, near plant antidote, near insult, and your skin agrees to behave out of sheer gratitude. Joke 3 surfaces gently. You have defeated the fiercest monster in the valley. Consequences. Your pockets fill with methods disguised as mischief. The feather that used to be a road becomes a direction marker stuck in a crack, Two crossed twigs mean not this way, and a little arch of grass means here. You practice a silent count with little knotted cords, one knot for each child who darts off to pretend bring kindling, and you learn to unmake one knot per safe return. Historians still argue whether cordage also counted stories, one knot per verse, or whether memory rode only on breath and bone. Your breath learns a verse you can count without chords, 2 notes down like a friendly stare, the one the bone flute planted there and refuses to evict. Supper lessons fold into the quest's epilogue. You tie meat to a high branch with your new cord, so the dogs don't invent midnight feasts. You lash lids to bowls so hot, stones can travel without scalding pride. You secure the lamp's handle with a knot that looks decorative and turns out to be confidence in string form. Mainstream historical fact makes another polite entrance birch tar the smoky chew you've been sharing since Section 1 seals lashings and fixes little tears. It also glues stories to your fingers so tasks feel like narrative instead of nagging. You end where all good quests end, back at the ring with evidence of competence and a yawn you are heroically trying to suppress. The teller inspects your knots like a merchant appraising fine cordage, then pulls the quick ear and frees everything with a flourish so clean the children gasp. You present the laugh tooth to general acclaim. It clacks once against a shell, and your sternum answers with that low purr the humstring taught you, as if your ribs are applauding. The elder sweeps a palm over the ash and smooths your many footprints into one soft patch, erasing only the mess, not the memory. Games are classrooms that don't brag, they say. Your shoulders drop the last inch. The ring leans as one. The pebble contract sits warm where worries go to nap. The ash spiral for maybe waits with infinite patience beside tomorrow. Above the crooked W you adopted from the sky keeps being a maybe worth loving. If you wake later, you'll still know the sleeping loop and the hugging knot and the quick ear. You'll still know that dew remembers footsteps and that nettles can be negotiated. You'll still hum 2 small notes and feel your breath untie. You'll still think of ravens trade lions edit, mammoths lean, and the mouse's diligent paperwork. And you will still smile at the way the night let you learn hard things gently by pretending you were only playing. The healer does not raise their voice. They lower the room. A palm presses the air over the coals as if patting a restless dog, and the fire settles into a nap that still knows your name. They set a hide bundle in their lap and begin to unpack the night's quieter tools, a twist of dried mint leaves, a flake of resin that looks like trapped honey amber, a little marrow fat in a shell, a smear of soot already tamed by fingertips, 2 small pebbles so smooth they have clearly been promoted from ordinary to helpful. You lean closer until the smell of green smoke and animal warmth becomes a blanket you can breathe. The first medicine is sound. The healer hums not a tune, but a temperature low enough that ribs agree to move together. They show you where to place your tongue so your breath turns to purr, and in 3 exchanges, your exhale has learned bowl language. Then plant voices join. Mint is crumbled into a small hide cup. A hot stone dives and steam writes soft shapes against your face. The sting in your throat from Section 9's laughing and wind talk gets convinced to retire. Joke 1 floats up through the steam. If you fall asleep on my lap, I charge in feathers. Raven coughs in a businesslike way from the shadows, which is to say, he approves of the fee. Bitter follows sweet because the body likes contrast almost as much as stories do. The healer shaves willow bark into the next cup, the wood smell of rain and patience, and tips the steam toward your eyes. Mainstream historical fact: willow carries salicylate, the quiet ancestor of a far future pain remedy. The plant has lectured aches for ages, long before bottles became shamans. They add a pinch of something that smells like field and old tea yarrow, the cousin who refuses to be charming. Quirky tidbit wrapped in real teeth, far away in the plaque of old molars, and the dust of caves. Bitter plant traces, like yarrow and chamomile, have been found near old jaws. Maybe medicine, maybe meals, maybe just the plants that tagged along. Historians still argue whether those traces prove deliberate healing or the enthusiastic mess of living. But the taste on your tongue tonight is definitely deliberate, and your face makes the expression that says both useful and I am extremely brave about how terrible this tastes. Soot becomes a sentence. The healer dips a fingertip into the black and draws a small dot just beneath your nose. Mint, under the nose, got crowned in section 10. Soot gets a quieter job now to remind breath to go through your nose where it warms and listens. A thin line arcs across your chest where ribs meet sternum, the place memory loves to visit when you sleep. For remembering while resting, they murmur. The soot is fat mixed, so it doesn't wander. The smell is fire's autograph. You think of the 3-finger hand stencils from section 4 and feel oddly official, as if the wall has approved your membership to the Society of Reasonable Lungs. Honey appears like a small sunrise. The healer warms it with a thumb and a sigh and works a glimmer of beeswax into the shine, then adds resin until the mixture thinks it's a salve. Mainstream historical fact: honey is unfriendly to the small villains in wounds. Its sweetness is a locked door for many of them, and wax keeps edges behaving. The salve softens cracked knuckles, the kind that come from cord games and pebble contracts and heroic dishwashing after stew. A dab touches a nettle sting, earned during Section 11's very brave laugh tooth rescue, and your skin reports a truce. They pass around a strip of birch pitch with familiar tooth marks. Our old smoky gum from Section 1 reminding you that chewing can be medicine when it unknots a jaw and sweetens a stubborn mood. Heated and smeared, that same pitch will glue the little splint onto a nicked fingertip. The humstring sighs. You chew once, twice, and your jaw remembers to be part of a mammal, not a hinge on a trap. Smoke is the healer's cloak. Juniper twigs, a scrap of artemisia, perhaps something your camp calls sleep leaf, all bundled and coaxed to a slow, friendly smolder. They stroke the smoke through hair over hides along the lamp's handle and across the doorway so the draft learns new manners. The point is part bug bothering, part smell schooling, part. Me are one thing now. Mainstream historical fact woven with bedtime smoke curing and smoke bathing keep insects undecided and hides more patient, and the scent sews a roomful of breathing into one cloth. Historians still argue whether smudging in deep prehistory was mostly practical, mostly ceremonial, or the very human habit of doing 3 good things with 1 good gesture. Your shoulders vote for all of the above. Now the whispers begin. Not secrets, recipes. Sleep on the leeward side. Hot stones wrapped in hide, small and often. If owl calls twice, count your youngest. These you've heard before as lullaby lyrics. Here they are, tinctures decanted into your ear. The healer gives you a pebble and asks for 1 worry. You press your small, persistent thought into the stone the way you packed fears into warm geology in Section 9, then slide the pebble to the ring's edge where it warms without interrupting. A new contract, this one, with dreams I will not grade them while they work. A cord knot is made with eyes, mostly closed. Mischief meets method, and hung near the hide door. For catching the stray, the healer says a wandering thought, a rude draft, a nightmare that forgot its manners. Fringe drifts in kindly. Some swear a raven feather improves the knot's appetite. Others claim a bat's shadow is enough. Historians still argue whether such dream catching has bones old enough to show up in museums, or if we're hearing later echoes. The camp's conclusion is the same as Section 9's. If it helps sleep, it is real where it counts. The healer spreads a thin skim of clay on a leaf and offers it to a belly that ate enthusiasm with nettles earlier. Geophagy. Earth-eating gets a blessing and a grin. Clay can soothe what river water tried to debate, and as you taste the cool grit, you feel extremely antique and extremely comforted. Joke 2 arrives yawning. If you ask for seconds, you're either very cured or very confused. Then comes remembering. Not the sharp kind, the sleep kind. The healer taps 2 fingers over your temple right where the bone flute stare has been rehearsing itself all evening. Tell the new things where to go, they whisper. So you do with the smallest breath of words. Sleeping loop knot belongs in hands. Snare physics belongs in wrists. Star road orientation belongs in neck. Ravens trade in pockets. Lion ante's posture in spine. Mammoths lean in shoulders. The mouse's paperwork in smile. You feel your day file itself, like flint flakes on a good napper's hide, sharp bits in one pile, blades in another, dust for paint when needed. Far future people will name stages and spindle bursts. Here, the healer just calls it dream memory. Your lids agree with a signature that looks suspiciously like a yawn. They draw a little ladder of soot bison legs style on your forearm. For running the right distance in dreams, they say like a coach who trained the night. The bowl taps once, twice. The humstring sighs. The bone flute quotes that two-step promise you keep under your ribs. The circle's breath braids into one slow rope. Everything you've learned is now encouraged to stretch while you sleep and return stronger. If you dream of the cliff from the shadow stage, it will come with edges labeled and a rope that knows its job. If you dream hyena reviews, they will end with applause for your mint crown. One last plant story, gentle and bright, a crumb of resin on a coal sing's perfume that makes even the dogs choose to sigh. The healer names it Tree's Memory, and you think of Section 4's Moon Milk and Section 7's Sky Road the way the world keeps its own notes and lets you borrow them. They press a tiny smear of the resin salve onto the laugh-tooth charm so it shines like clean mischief. The charm clicks against a shell, your ribs answer as always with a low purr, and the healer smiles like a door soft closing. Mainstream historical fact steps in softly to hold the room. A cave far away kept pollen in a grave, and some said flower burial the gentlest phrase a night can teach. Historians still argue whether burrowing rodents rearranged that pollen or loving hands did. But the argument lives on the ground. The feeling, the instinct to tuck color beside a body is older than proof and still happening here in miniature as petals are rubbed between fingers and their oil is brushed on a brow. You do not debate it. You simply accept the way the scent makes your shoulders decide to be softer tomorrow. Joke 3 leans down and boops your nose with a minty finger. Side effect of all this medicine, the healer whispers, is sudden competence at sleeping. The circle fakes alarm. You demonstrate the symptom admirably for 3 seconds and then heroically recover. The pebble from your palm is set back by the fire to warm the worry into something less pointy. Your ash spiral for maybe is redrawn lightly, just so tomorrow knows where to find you. The lamp is pulled behind its little hide diffuser, so shadows remember how to be velvet. The star road peeks into the cave mouth and gives you the crooked W you adopted to measure your naps. It has moved a thumb's width. You have, in fact, slept a little while sitting up, which the camp counts as both medicine and talent. The healer's murmur ebbs to the sort of silence that glows. You smell mint and resin honey and ash, winter promise stone, and summer leaf memory. Your skin holds soot like a friendly map. Your mouth holds the last flavor of bitter like a medal. Your ribs hold a stare that goes gently downward and lands on a bed made of you. The night is now arranged for drifting, and you are arranged to remember the good parts when you come back. Morning doesn't so much arrive as quietly sign the pebble paperwork and let you know the road has been approved. You wake to the soft bureaucracy of travel cords, unknotting with a tug on the quick ear bless. Last night's lesson hides rolled tight as good secrets, hot stones shaken from their wraps and thanked for their night shift. The fire goes from hearth to citizen, and ember is cradled into a bark and fungus pouch. Your pocket sun so bedtime can walk with you. The pouch smells like smoke and honeyed rot, which is exactly what safety smells like at arm's length. Mainstream historical fact, tinder fungi like Amadou catch and cradle a slow coal for hours. Pair that with flint pyrite and dry plant fiber, and a camp can move the way a flame walks, never quite going out, just changing rooms. The ring becomes a column, then a necklace of small conversations strung along the path. The humstring stays behind, but your chest learned its chord. You carry the note for the rest of the day like a warm coin under your tongue. The bowl becomes footfalls, thrum, thrum, thrum. And the bone flute's two-step stare repeats inside your breath until the path itself starts to feel musical. Raven scouts in a lazy zigzag ahead, offering terrible opinions on routes he definitely did not invent. Joke 1 floats up with the early light. If Raven says, shortcut, pack extra patience. Traveling bedtime is built from light tools. A rattle small enough to live in a pocket, 2 teeth, and a shell on a cord keeps toddlers convinced that grown-ups still know where they're going. A story bead necklace clicks now and then. 1 bead for each rest place, 1 shell for each river that made you polite. 1 tooth for the lesson you agreed to remember. Quirky tidbit, some swear you can read yesterday's wind in a bead, warmed by your palm. South keeps heat, north gives it back. You test it, accept the result, and also accept that your hand is unblushingly biased. The first crossing is a river pretending to be large. The water talks in vowels against stones, and you listen for the way Lion Auntie taught you edges first, then current, then knees. A cord slung across helps short legs. Your hugging knot embraces a willow that has seen this play many times. You walk at an angle that keeps the water arguing with your shins instead of your hips. And you sing the leeward verse from earlier sleep on the leeward side because singing a rule turns it into a friend. Mainstream historical fact. Mobile foragers often move in seasonal rounds, following animals and ripening foods. Crossings, shelters, and fords repeat the way lullabies do until places become verses you can hum. Historians still argue whether some carved antler batons with rows of notches tracked such cycles. The moon's lean or just practiced straight thinking on stiff material. Tonight, your calves vote for calendar. Ish, while your head votes for this is fine. Keep moving. Across wet and into wind, the group stretches, then braids back tighter when the land lifts. Your feather road becomes a pointing device, marking a bend before it arrives. 2 crossed twigs warn the children away from a dimpled patch that looks too much like a bog rehearsing for lunch. You want the humstrings anaama, so you invent one, a low shared back along the line whenever the path narrows or bravery gets overeager. It works. Bodies relax a shade, and the ground becomes less personal. The road is also a classroom that doesn't care about walls. You practice your shadow posture as clouds herd themselves sloped, shoulder, to tell whether you can be persuaded squared, to politely insist it try someone else. A field of reindeer moss becomes a lecture on timing nibble when it's dry, leave it when it's wet and fragile. Someone quotes, mammoth. Auntie strong rings lean, and the column leans as one around a boulder, the way a story leans around a hard truth, without pretending it isn't there. A lullaby on the move has to wear boots. The healer starts it under their breath. Small and often, and knees to the current. Count your youngest, call your stars. The rhythm is walking-sized, and the rhyme is more suggestion than law. In the back, a cousin repeats the last word of each line like a friendly echo. You smile at the callback to Section 9 echoes, like partners not thieves. A child tries the bone flute's 2 notes and gets a squeak that earns a cheer. In this choir, squeaks are promoted to bonus texture. Midday, the world offers a practical joke nettles. Again, this patch is taller, smugger, and very committed to education. You demonstrate your newfound nav skills from Section 11 Doc Leaf, Pleasant Green Apology, and the Sting downgrades from lecture to postcard. Joke 2 hands you a feathered certificate. Congratulations, you are now certified in respecting plants. That don't. The ember sleeps in its pouch. Now and then, you check it the way you check a pocket. Your sure holds a precious pebble contract. Quick, discreet, relieved when you feel the warmth answer. The pouch rides with the elderly cousin, who walks steady as a metronome. If the group is a necklace, they are the clasp that never fails. They also carry the laugh tooth because a traveling column needs jokes more than a ring does. Space stretches humor like taffy, and the tooth clacks at just the right moment whenever a stumble wants to become a sulk. Above your adopted crooked W, keeps being itself, just in a new piece of sky. You like that sameness that moves. Mainstream historical fact folds in across deep time. People watched stars rise earlier or later as seasons turned, using their positions to decide when to follow herds or head for berries, even though precession slowly changed the grand picture across millennia. The teller turns it into a wandering benediction. If the sky can drift and still be useful, so can you. Your ankles accept the wisdom grudgingly, like bureaucrats stamping a permit they can't actually resist. Late light finds you near ice that lingers in the low places, old winter refusing to retire. The surface looks like stone wearing glass. The group doesn't tempt chance. You do the mammoth thing test with a long branch, listen for the low complaint of uncertain ice, then root around through willow and hummock. Bedtime Portable Edition means never having to be dramatic at noon. You hum the leeward chorus, and everyone's shoulders exhale. Food walks with you, pemmican by another name, lean meat, dried and pounded with fat until it becomes travel that doesn't spoil its mood. Berries mashed into sun leather. A fish story folded in salt. You take a bite, and your jaw remembers birch tar gum, and suddenly chewing is memory work again, a method for telling your body it isn't alone on this long, reasonable road. Historians still argue whether certain residues on grinding stones were mostly for paint or food. Your mouth votes yes. A small strange trick is passed to you with a wink, a smooth river pebble under the tongue for dryness. It does nothing magical. It simply persuades your mouth to cooperate until the next real sip. Quirky tidbit promoted to why not stamped by experience filed next to call echoes partners and mint crowns legalize snoring. Conversations stack like firewood as you walk. In the front star talk, in the middle chord tricks, in the back dream editing. If the cliff returns in your sleep, someone says kindly to a child, tell it your rope knows its job. Bedtime never pauses, it just changes costumes. The lamp is the sun now. The diffuser is cloud. The rattle is footfall. The bowl is your rib cage. The hum string is everyone's agreeing breath. You don't miss the cave's silver screen because the land is projecting its own reeds. Flicker Shadows, Herd and Gray's Raven does a one-bird show where he plays both hero and complaint department. The day leans toward another hearth you haven't built yet. The ember wakes in its pouch and yawns smoke into the new circle. Quick ears knot the ridgeline. Hides learn the shape of shelter without needing lectures. The hot stone gets hired again and slips into a wrap near the elder's feet. The ring reforms as if the ground kept a template. You feel the groove your heel has not made yet waiting for you, like a reserved seat. Before the lamp is even fully itself, the storyteller runs a quick diagnostic on everyone's minds. Tell me the road we walked without saying walk. They purr. Answers come like beads. We hummed. We traded knees with wind. We asked nettles for permission and Doc for forgiveness. We turned a star into a leash. Laughter arrives late, polite as always, carrying its own dishes. Mainstream returns to fold the day into old-fact reindeer bison. Salmon seals pick your valley. Pick your shore people followed lives that followed food patterns, repeated enough that songs could memorize them. Some nights, the stories teach you how to stay. Nights like this, they teach you how to keep moving without dropping your softness. Historians still argue whether those long chains of painted dots and lines were maps counts or just decorations that like to travel on memory's belt. The elder's shoulder says map, the healer's hum says count, and your yawn says decoration is not the enemy of usefulness. Joke 3 settles in with the smoke. Tomorrow, the storyteller announces solemnly, Raven will invent a hill that goes only downhill. Raven bows, delighted by the slander. The children vote to try it. Mammoth Auntie votes to pack extra patience. Lion Auntie votes to edit the plan in the morning. The Ember Lawyer of the Elements signs all 3 proposals with a single agreeable glow. Night returns as if it never left a habit you've learned to love. The crooked W hangs where it needs to. The bee nest winks a little. The river talks vowels at the new ford. You feel the bone flute's tiny stare rehearse itself unasked, and your breath remembers it without complaint. The laugh tooth clicks once. The cord knot for catching strays goes up at the door not because dreams are enemies, but because they get excitable on field trips. The pebble with today's small worry warms itself near the edge, unremarkable as a star you can't name and don't need to. You lie down in a place you've never slept and recognize it anyway. The rules traveled, the humor walked, the animals came in their portable versions. The sky remembered your name even after moving an arm's length to the left. Bedtime was never the wall, or the lamp, or the one exact hearth. It was this, a pocket of gentle breath you can pitch like a tent wherever the wind agrees to be reasonable. You hold the softness the elder asks for, and it holds you back like a knot that knows when to hug and when to let go. The ring tightens the way a braid does when the last strand finds its place. The storyteller lifts a flake of flint, one you've seen do honest work, and holds it flat on their palm as if it were a small boat that remembers every river. This, they murmur, has been many knives and one story. The flake catches lamplight and throws it back in quiet syllables. Your chest hears the bone flute's two-step stare and answers with the exhale it has practiced since the first hum-string sigh. Names arrive like embers, small, hot, each with a job. An ancestor who taught the first hugging knot, and a quicker way to lash hides before weather-remembered drama. Another who listened to Owl twice and counted the youngest who had decided to count a moth as a sibling. Others whose feet learned Ice's opinions, whose hands learned Birch Pitch's sticky grammar, whose jokes turned hyena reviews into bedtime footnotes. The teller sets each name down with a pebble at the ring's edge, as if signing a very old contract you suddenly realize you're part of. Joke 1 tips its hat. If you drop a pebble and it rolls back, that ancestor is volunteering for extra chores. A stone politely rolls 2 fingers length clearly in excellent spirits. Mainstream historical fact steps in with soft moccasins. Some people long ago were sent into the long sleep under red ochre with beads stitched by thousands, onto hides tens of seasons worth of thumbs, and patience twined into garments of memory. At another camp, ivory beads line a child's rest like stars laid into a lap. The teller translates this without fuss. We sew time onto bodies, so time remembers to be kind. Quirky tidbit drifts in beside it. The elder keeps a tiny pouch of name sand grains from a river you crossed as a baby sprinkled into your hair each year so your head knows where it started. Does sand keep track? Your scalp votes, yes. A story of beginning curls around the hearth, warm as the hot stone wrapped near the elder's ankle. The tale isn't a ledger, it's a path. We were winter, the teller says, learning to carry our son in a pouch, small and often. We were summer, they continue counting with shells, letting berries argue with our tongues. We were river, they add, deciding where knees belong. In each verse, an ancestor leans across time to hand you something sensible, the ash spiral for maybe the pebble contract for hold this, the feather that remembers road. Historians still argue whether marks on antler batons, lines on plaquettes and clusters on walls were clan signs, moon maps, or artists trying not to yawn. The teller makes the debate useful by pressing your palm to the flint and saying, take what helps you not to wander. They knit animals into the family on purpose. Raven is named as an old in-law with a suspicious number of shiny spoons. A generous uncle who taught trade by stealing and returning slightly improved. Lion Auntie shows up as the great editor who kept arguments short, eyes safer than pride. Mammoth patient as weather with boots on becomes the grandparent no winter could bully. Your own part is braided in without ceremony. Your mouse with paperwork when caution needs a clerk. You are dock leaf when nettles have opinions. You're the crooked W adopted back in section 7 when someone needs a night compass small enough to fit in a pocket. The flint in the teller's hand is passed around. Every palm gives it a new history, Sweat scent, a thumb's groove deepening, like a sentence finding the right word. From flint to family myth, the elder whispers, and you can taste birch pitch and resin honey salve, smell juniper smoke woven into hide feel. The lamp's beat of light teaching the wall to be soft. Joke 2 strolls through with raven swagger. If you drop the flint, you must immediately tell a flattering story about it. Someone drops it with theatrical ambition and delivers a speech about the blade that once heroically sliced a stubborn root. The flint looks pleased. So do the roots. A small solemn pact is made with a cord. 3 knots, 1 for the person you came from, 1 for the one who taught you to count echoes as partners, 1 for the person who will learn from you without asking permission. The healer ties them with your humming breath as the rhythm no drum just ribcage and hangs the cord where the lamp warms it. In years, you can't see, yet a palm will touch those knots and call it map. Some call this a name ladder. Some call it spare spine. You decide not to call it anything. You just like how it feels when the knots knock softly together like distant shells. Mainstream steps back in wearing the moon milk smile from Section 4 in wide valleys. People built rings of big bones and hid themselves from weather with patience and sinew, which is one way of telling the future you're welcome. The teller folds that into a myth about the night. The first circle leaned strong. Rings don't argue, and you sense the architecture of belonging, settling around your shoulders with the weight of a good cloak. Historians still argue whether certain carved antler batons crowned leaders, guided shafts marked lineages, or simply kept straight things straight. The elder uses one now to nudge the ash into a spiral only a little larger than your hand, reminding everyone that forever is mostly made of gentle maintenance. The origin of your name gets staged like a small festival, not the sound people use to find you when soup is ready. The hidden name the ring only whispers when your breath needs a leash. It arrives out of ingredients. You recognize a pebble warmed and held, a feather balanced and blown, a smear of ochre that smells like iron singing. The bone flute's 2-note stare, down laid under it like a floorboards. The elder says the hidden name once very near your ear, and you can feel every lesson you've carried turn its head. Politely knots, stars, shadows, echoes, jokes, hot stone mint crown. Joke 3 winks. Do not shout your hidden name at hyenas. They don't do subscriptions. A fringe-flavored custom tiptoes in the empty seat. Once a turn of the sky say, when the bee nest sinks below the horizon, the ring leaves a space near the lamp for someone who isn't here and might be if invited kindly. On that seat, a shell that clacks when moved, a tooth polished by grand thumbs, a strip of fur that smells like rain. You have watched the empty seat be a door sometimes. You've also watched it be a lovely idea that still made everyone breathe better. Historians still argue whether such invitations have ancestors old enough to fossilize into culture strata, or whether we're hearing later echoes. The night argues for kindness either way, and the lamp nods. The teller lays your day onto the family braid with the same lack of fuss. Today you mastered the quick ear knot and rescued a laugh tooth from nettled diplomacy. Today you measured fear into 2 breaths and gave echo a duet instead of a monologue. Today you adopted a crooked W because it resembled your ash spiral for maybe, which is exactly how myths pick favorites. None of this is grand. All of it is permanent where it needs to be. Your sleeves smell like juniper smoke. Your pocket holds a pebble that learned your palm. Your jaw remembers birch. Your ribs hum 2 notes. They pass you a bowl not to drink, to listen. The bowl is the ancestor here, clay or wood rim, worn to the idea of a circle, scars that read like weather. You hold it near your chest until the humstring's old chord wakes in it, and then you tell the bowl the first line of a story you'll teach someone small. In a year you can't see yet, the bowl keeps it. Bowls are good at that. Every camp is a beginning, the elder says, and for a gentle heartbeat, you understand precession without math, that the pole star wanders over very long. Patience that sky roads drift, and still makes sense that names do what stars do. shift their coats, and stay themselves. The flint comes back to your palm like a bird that believes in you. Candle-soft lamp, mint-soft noses, soot-soft maps, bone-soft stairs. Everything that once seemed like tools now feels like relatives. Before the tale thins toward dawn's humble drama, the ring performs the smallest ceremony it knows. One by one, pebbles pressed with names earlier are nudged into a neat crescent at the hearth's edge, a smile you will step over on your way to dreams. Your pebble clicks against the next with that satisfied sound your ribs imitate when the laugh tooth touches shell. The elder draws the tiniest ash spiral above them, maybe because even forever enjoys a little uncertainty. The lamp approves with a quiet nod of flame. If you wake in the dark, you'll reach for your hidden name the way your hand reaches for the hot stone in winter. Not because drama demands it, but because comfort remembers where it lives. You'll touch the knot cord and hear your breath tug 3 soft threads who held you, who taught you who will learn, and let sleep reclaim what it loaned you for the evening. The wall will keep your shadow, the sky will keep your W, the path will keep your heel, the story will keep your place. The lamp lowers until it is mostly a memory behaving like a flame. Coals wear their ash like a blanket breathing in the measured way you've been practicing since the first bowl taps. The storyteller tips the moss snuffer toward a flirtatious spark, not to scold, just to remind it of bedtime manners. You can feel the ring perform its last small rearrangements. Hides tugged over ankles, a child diagonaled, so their foot can stay in the parent's warm shadow. The elder shifting a hot stone closer to bones that forecast weather too accurately. Your heel finds the groove it carved over the evening and sighs into it, like a seed back into a hand. The pebble crescent of names grins at the hearth's edge, each stone warming and forgetting its sharpness on schedule. The ash spiral for maybe sits just beyond modest and promising, like a door that chooses not to open because it knows you will still be here in the morning. The healer makes the 2-finger sign, hold this softness, and you hold it without gripping the way you hold the quiet during the bone flute's 2-step stare. Some tasks, like lullabies, repeat because they work. A hide-wrapped stone slips beneath a fur near the elder's calves. Small and often, someone murmurs the phrase that has escorted wood fears and kindness all night. The mint crown returns to the statistically likely snorers, a dab beneath the nose that feels like a pardon issued in advance. Joke 1 arrives with a straight face. Side effect of mint authority is irresistible handsomeness. The circle hums its agreement without risking debate that would jeopardize the peace. Mainstream historical fact drops in softly so as not to wake the dog people long ago, stitched tailored hides with eyed bone needles. Sleek little miracles found from cold plains to deep caves. So blankets, hoods, and moccasins fit and kept the world from having its way with the sleeper. A needle lies zipped into a pouch now. Its smooth eye has the look of an ancestor who loves you and also insists on neat seams. The hides around you remember those needles and reward the memory with fewer drafts. The firekeeper performs the old trick with a fresh tenderness, banking coals under ash so dawn can happen with less drama. A flat rib is used like a quiet paddle. The coals settle and glow under their pale quilt. You think of the pocket sun in the Amadou pouch from section 13 and feel the same reassurance, heat kept, like a promise, no bragging. A rattle gives one last pebble roll approving the transaction, then retires as if it earned a pension. Outside, hyena tries a half opinion and decides it's not worth the paperwork. The reeds imitate applause so delicately that your ears decide to be flattered rather than alert. The echo, companionable all evening, tucks itself into the corner where it can dream without returning calls. You withdraw your awareness from the scrub the way a hand withdraws from water slowly, without splashing your thoughts onto other people's skins. Quirky tidbit, small as a secret and just as pleased with itself, a dreamstone chosen smooth and cool from the river is passed to you to warm in your palm and rest near your head. Some swear it collects the most skittish parts of a night and returns them as gentle stories in the morning. You don't argue. You like any tool that believes in you. You set the stone where a thought might trip over it and become a poem instead of a worry. Joke too drowsy and extremely confident whispers. If your dreamstone snores, ask it for a feather. The stars keep their shifts with the calm that made you adopt that crooked W in the first place. It has drifted a thumb's width since you last saluted it, a polite reminder that time is happening, but not rudely. The bee nest fussing on the other side of the sky winks just enough to count. When they go, the elder breathes. Mornings taste different. You promise to notice, not to audit. Mainstream's cousin archaeology, with soft hands, steps through your mind with a last bedtime fact in a far-off cave. Layers of ash grasses and aromatic plants were laid as bedding, freshened, burned, renewed a housekeeping that discouraged biting things and encouraged sleep to keep its appointments. You can feel tonight's floor echo that wisdom swept, padded perfumed by juniper's faithful curl of smoke. Historians still argue whether people in ages like this slept in one long drift or two gentler segments with a wakeful harbor in between. You discover you don't need a verdict to enjoy the harbor. You're in that delicious middle where the ring breathes like one animal and the lamp practices being a star. Names murmur around you. The new kind you were given close to your ear, the old kind your aunt uses when the soup is ready. The animal kin who upgraded fear into instruction, and none of them ask for your attention. They are self-feeding tonight, ember trained. You feel like a pouch of quiet with a person tucked inside it for safekeeping. The storyteller offers just one more thing, and it isn't a tale. It's a maintenance check disguised as a blessing. Feather is road, they ask, voice low as fur. You nod, feeling the soft vector of it pointing you toward sleep. Pebble is contract. Another nod, your palm, remembering warmth that domesticated small frets. Ash spiral is maybe. Your smile does the job of your mouth. Two notes are stare. Your ribs answer with a practiced slide downhill. Lion edits. Your shoulders slope on cue. Raven trades your pocket grins. Mammoth leans. Everyone leans together a circle, pretending to be a single, very comfortable animal. The healer lays a thumb on the quick ear knot of the shelter line and gives it 1 millimeter of kindness, so the fabric slackens into a better lull. If dreams arrive with too many legs, like that bison you loved in Section 4, you'll watch the lamps bead, walk them down to the right number. If echoes knock, you'll open only enough to hand them the moss snuffer and a schedule. If wind forgets its manners, you'll list tomorrow's chores until it becomes bored of being a person. Joke 3 curls up like a fox at your knee. If you wake and can't remember which way is sleep, ask your feet. They always point at it. Your toes, smug with truth, point at the warmth under the hides. The laugh tooth clicks once against a shell from 2 nests away, and your ribs answer with that quiet purr they taught themselves. A moth writes one last cursive note near the lamp and signs off as if the night were a letter to a friend. You breathe in. Mint and juniper answer with a footnote of honey and pitch. You breathe out. The ring lowers its shoulders in perfect sympathy. The lamp performs its one trick, being smaller and kinder every moment, and the wall rehearses the trick of being the inside of your eyelids. Somewhere beyond this soft geometry, the river quietly argues with stones about vowels, and the stones agree to be patient. You do not reintroduce the topic. You do not audition for tomorrow. You practice the only craft you're required to master before dawn, staying gently inside all this. Let the words loosen their belts and sit a little farther back in the chair. The fire is mostly hushed now, a slow, embered breath beneath a quilt of ash, and you are arranged just right in the hollow you've made. Feel how the hide presses warmth upward, how the ground answers with quiet, how your hands remember to be hands and not nets. The air is warm near your mouth and cooler as it slips away. That gradient is a lullaby all by itself, a soft slope you lie upon without moving. You can let the ring fade to silhouettes, friendly hills, not puzzles. The pebble crescent smiles where names are tucked. The ash spiral rests with its promise of maybe later. Even the lamp is thoughtful enough to dim to courtesy. Somewhere, a last mint crown makes snoring legal, and even if a joke remembers itself, it yawns and agrees to be tomorrow's business. Keep the 2 notes under your breath down, and let each one lengthen. The first opens your ribs, the second lets your shoulders set down their small bundles. If a thought wanders in, give it a seat by the door and a warm pebble. It can wait comfortably until morning knows what to do with it. If wind in the reeds tries on a story, let it tell itself quietly outside. You are inside the inside. Notice the small comforts, a warm spot against your calf, the clean edge of juniper in your hair, the way your tongue has stopped looking for work. Above your adopted stars, keep their patient distance, keeping time without asking you to count. You are here in the middle of safe in the slowest part of the night, with nothing sharp invited and everything necessary within reach. Let your breath become the whole task. In, out. A little slower, a little softer. The world has agreed to keep turning without your help for a while. You can let go and be held.